It all started in 2025, when the game Lands Abandoned by God was released, but the abilities granted to it also manifested in the real world. Since then, the world shocked by the disaster has changed fundamentally, and our young protagonist Qin Feng was one of those who wanted to prevent this, being just one step away from the main goal. However, neither he nor anyone else could have imagined that in the end, the young man would be betrayed by the person closest to him. Qin Feng didn't expect that it would be she who betrayed him. But what surprised him even more was that after his death, he was suddenly reborn. He thought it was all over. But the sacred artifact he obtained gave him a second chance. And this time, the young man intended to do everything to avoid the mistakes he had made in the past. And first of all, to renounce his sister who had betrayed him. Now the young man will take a completely different path, becoming a shadow of this world. Thanks to his reincarnation, he now progresses 100 times faster than in his previous life, which will help him take revenge on Song Fei. To go the whole way alone, no matter who would be on it. That was the young man's motive. Looking back, the young man always remembered that very scene, the moment when death overtook him when he least expected it. Qin Feng didn't understand why, of all the people in the world, it was his sister, Qin Zhao, who stabbed him in the back. Then Qin Zhao said that she didn't consider him her brother, because he was just a foundling adopted by her parents, so they had nothing in common. However, this might not have happened if the sister had not been influenced by Fei, the young man's #1 enemy. Qin Feng didn't understand why she did this, because when her parents died, he devoted all his attention to her, paid for her education, and risked his life countless times for her. Qin Zhao, however, thought differently, saying that after her parents' death, she didn't like the fact that he continued to interfere in her life, pushing and controlling her. Ultimately, Qin Feng was betrayed by his sister, and also betrayed by her husband. This is what the game Lands Abandoned by God was like for the young man. As soon as a person fell asleep, he found himself in the game world, and it didn't matter whether he wanted it or not. The player could spend life energy to use powers in the real world, and the strongest could tear steel with their bare hands, cut through airplanes with a single blow of a sword, and even withstand nuclear attacks. And since then, the world has been plunged into chaos, and Qin Feng has done everything possible to ensure that he and his sister can live. After countless mortal dangers, the young man was finally able to reach the ruins of the ancient god, where he obtained a sacred artifact, the Eye of Justice. However, he could not have imagined that at that very moment, his dear sister would plunge a sword into his back. In the end, all his efforts were trampled upon, and all his suffering only paved the way for someone else. But Qin Feng didn't want to put up with this, and was ready to do anything just to start over and prevent such an outcome. Suddenly, after death, he woke up in the ordinary world, right in the bed of his room, and could not believe that he had been reborn. In his new life, everything started the same way as in his old one. In the morning, an angry Qin Xiao broke into his room because he didn't answer his calls. It was the day when Qin Xiao had a fight with the same Fei who killed him in his previous life. Even before the game, Fei was a famous idol, and Qin Xiao was his crazy fan. And although he looked like a pretty good-looking guy, in reality, he turned out to be quite a monster. Fei took advantage of his popularity and often asked fans for money and physical favors. And to prevent Qin Zhao from falling for his tricks, he forbade her from hanging around him. Then his sister accused him of being overly controlling, to which he responded with a very rude tactic. It was a real shock for her. Her brother, who had always been on her side, began to control her excessively, and on top of that, he even hit her. From that day on, the young man changed. He gave her the card with her parents' money, from which he did not take a penny, and also said that from now on, she was not his sister. In his previous life, Qin Feng had missed many opportunities while trying to protect his sister, and he had even refused to enter dangerous ruins and dungeons just to keep Qin Xiao safe. However, now everything would be different. The young man was determined to become stronger and take revenge for the betrayal of not only Qin Xiao, but also Fei. After taking the sleeping pill, Qin Feng fell asleep and woke up in the selection hall, the place where in his past life he spent a lot of time choosing a class. Back then, he had chosen the path of a warrior to protect Qin Zhao, and it had been a good choice, but now it didn't suit him. From now on, he won't need to protect anyone, which means he will do everything alone, and the assassin class is ideal for this. What also surprised Qin Feng was that after his rebirth, the Eye of Justice remained with him and activated after choosing a class, granting the unique characteristic Authority of Justice, which gives the player the strongest build of the chosen path. Moreover, he also unlocked a secret subclass, the Shadow. The Shadow was a secret build of the assassin, and unlike the warrior, this time the youth's vitality was much higher. Unlocking a class's secret build is an incredibly difficult task, but thanks to Qin Feng's artifact, he did it in no time. Furthermore, he gained the ability to unlock the primal power of the universe upon attaining the status of deity, a power that transcends any law, natural or human. Yet its passive effects were already activated. In Qin Feng's past life, it was only 7 years after the game's launch that a player appeared who managed to escape the game and enter the reign of law. And only then did humanity learn about the reign of law. The young man could not have imagined that at the very beginning of the game, he would receive a primordial power capable of surpassing even the authority of law. And as soon as he entered the realm of law and achieved the status of deity, he would gain complete control over this power. After choosing a class, the system asked the young man to enter his nickname, and since the build was born in darkness, he decided that he would become a shadow. The young man was then transported to the God-forsaken lands game itself, a realm of ruins filled with countless monsters, where everyone could be torn to pieces and have their life energy sucked out. As soon as Qin Feng entered the game, he found himself in the city of Shell, which was a safe zone where neither monsters nor players could attack each other, and the rate of loss of life energy was equal to 1. His sudden appearance, and especially his appearance, caused concern among the players. Everyone wanted to know who he was. Moving further, Qin Feng came across a teleport from which a group of young guys who had failed to clear the dungeon appeared, and after their death, they headed to the city. Meanwhile, something surprised him. The girl named Zhang Li, an archer class, had a longbow with her, although they usually start with short bows, and therefore, Qin Feng thought that she also had a secret build. Zhang Li spoke to Qin Feng, noting that he had a very unusual build, and invited him to join them. However, Qin Feng had already chosen the path of solitude, so he refused her offer, which caused the guys discontent. However, Zhang Li didn't want to let him go just like that, so she suggested that the others secretly follow him, and at the same time, find out what he was capable of. Besides, Zhang Li was sure that he would certainly die at the hands of the monsters, and she didn't want to miss this spectacle. Zhang Li thought the game was a rather creepy and dangerous place, and didn't know how she ended up there. But without even the slightest experience in online games, she quickly assembled a team. But despite the fact that they acted together, the first monster easily destroyed them. Therefore, Zhang Li and the others decided to follow the mysterious youth, but he noticed them in time and disappeared. This surprised the boys even more. The young man suddenly appeared and just as suddenly disappeared, leaving no trace behind. In the end, they decided to return to the city to find a way to become stronger, forgetting about Qin Feng. Qin Feng was able to hide using the skill Shadow Walk, which made him invisible for a certain time. But this skill was deactivated when attacked, while increasing damage to the target. However, by using the skill Master of Invisibility, the young man doubled the duration of invisibility and went to explore the world. Because there was nothing interesting in the city, it was only a shelter for players. All players started with equal stats, but the classes they chose still provided some bonuses. From the very beginning, Qin Feng had a bonus to all characteristics. Moreover, he had another 5 free points, which he invested in agility. At the beginning of the game, it doesn't matter how the player distributes stats. Monsters still deal incredible damage, and the only way to defeat them is to outspeed them. And the first monster on Qin Feng's path did not take long to appear. It turned out to be a level 1 worm, and despite the fact that it was an ordinary monster, it could mutate. The worm was capable of devouring life energy, which is what happened to those guys Qin Feng met earlier. When a monster kills a player, it absorbs their life energy, and when it has collected enough, it can mutate. Dying in such a place would be a pity for the young man, so he used his skills to get rid of the monster as quickly as possible. Using incredible agility, he managed to disappear, causing the worm to become confused and not even notice how Qin Feng appeared on top and cut off its neck. Qin Feng was also surprised because he didn't expect to kill the worm with the first blow, even though he was hitting a weak spot. And all this was thanks to the Sneak Strike characteristic, which doubled the damage when attacking from a blind spot. In his past life, it had taken a lot of effort for the young man to defeat a level 1 monster, and he had almost died several times. But now everything was completely different. He earned 3 days of exchangeable life energy and 54 years, 155 days of non-exchangeable life energy from the monster. But Qin Feng thought he would get more, considering the monster killed 4 players. He also unlocked a new skill, Infinite Mutation, which gives him a chance to gain evolution points after killing a monster to improve his skills. Now the young man will be awarded 5 points every 24 hours, and defeating the boss is guaranteed to bring him additional points. This made Qin Feng truly happy, because in his past life, he had never heard of such a thing. But now, with the help of this skill, his leveling up would become much faster. In the forest, the young man also met a couple of players who mocked him, saying that the game was quite simple, since even such a ragamuffin managed to survive. However, they didn't even notice how a monster was sneaking up behind them, eager to kill them. Qin Feng decided to ignore the dim-witted players and disappeared into the shadows. Meanwhile, a monster called the Shepherd loomed over the players and was about to crush them. Before they could understand anything, the Shepherd, along with the other spiders, crushed them and absorbed their life energy. The Shepherd himself was the starting boss, with around 1,600 health, and a typical beginner would be completely overwhelmed. He also summoned spiders. However, this was a good chance for Qin Feng to test his skills. Using his incredible agility, he struck the monster from the shadows, dealing 338 damage by attacking its weak point. The young man himself received only 10 damage, and the boss, in a rage, began to destroy everything around him. Qin Feng, meanwhile, discovered another weak point, the spider's abdomen, where he decided to direct his subsequent blows. His suspicions were confirmed. He dealt a whopping 299 damage with an attack on the weak point, which was quite good for a newbie. The young man also noted that most of the damage comes from the bonuses from stealth skills, so even a hit with an ordinary stone causes significant damage to the monster. In the end, all he needed to do was throw the stone at the right moment, when the throw would collect the bonuses from the hidden strike, the sneak strike, and the attack on the weak point. For the final attack, he planned to activate Shadow Walk again, wait for the right moment, and deliver the decisive blow. After defeating the monster, the game's ranking was updated, and the name of the person who killed the bronze rank shepherd and was the first to reach level 2 was revealed, which greatly surprised everyone. In addition to experience, evolution points, and rating increases, Qin Feng also received the Rusty Dagger, and most interestingly, a new skill that gives a 20% chance to receive additional loot after defeating a monster. This was a truly useful skill, as it significantly increased loot yield. In a past life, there was a guy in the Godslayer guild with this skill, which made him one of the strongest players. And although the chance was currently only 20%, thanks to Qin Feng's endless evolution, he would be able to increase it several times. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao and her friend were walking to school, and on the way, her friend asked her if her brother would be angry with her for skipping the exam to attend Fei's concert, to which Qin Xiao replied that she didn't care, because he was the one who should apologize, since it was because of him that they were almost late yesterday. At this time, strange phenomena began to occur at the school. Several students fell asleep right on their desks and began to look like ghosts. At the same time, Qin Feng was busy leveling up his skills, and now the chance of receiving additional loot after defeating a monster was 70%, and the skill Greedy Hands itself increased to level 2. The young man was incredibly pleased with how his leveling was progressing. He had also managed to earn 2 more evolution points, while 3 points were required to raise Greedy Hands to level 3. However, he wanted to speed up the leveling process even more, because soon more and more people would start entering the game world, so he needed to hurry. Besides, once people realize that all skills and artifacts can be used in the real world, real chaos will begin. And for a player to be able to do this, only 2 conditions are required: reaching level 10, and having a sufficient amount of exchangeable life energy. After wandering around the forest for a while, Qin Feng came across another group of players who were desperately trying to defeat a second-level, bronze-ranked monster, the Centipede Worm. Meanwhile, among them, he recognized a familiar face, a guy named Wang Ming, who in the past had assembled a team exclusively from secret builds. As soon as he got into the game, Van Ming's build is a Holy Warrior, which has double the stats of a regular warrior, as well as advanced stealth skills. Moreover, he had a girl with him named Li Ji, who had a secret mage build Prophet, which allowed her to deal double magic damage, and had a unique skill, Fortune Teller's Fireball. In addition, there was a secret archer build, Sharpshooter, with doubled stats and a unique skill, Rapid Shooting. And finally, a cleric, Oracle, possessing incredible healing abilities. From the very beginning, these guys were different from the rest, and people like them were called cheaters in games. Moreover, Wang Ming was confident in his own strength and did not retreat, telling the cleric to continue healing him while he would distract the monster and the others would attack. Qin Feng noted that Wang Ming was thinking too optimistically and probably forgot that he was in the wilderness, where other monsters might come to the noise. The noise indeed brought a corruptor, and although it was a normal second-level monster, it could still cause quite a bit of trouble, as it was covered in mud slime and used area of effect attacks. At first, the boys thought they could cope with the new monsters, but everything turned out to be not so simple. As a result, their plan failed, and they were surrounded by creatures that they could no longer cope with. However, at the same time, it was a great moment for Qin Feng to finally show himself and what made him different from the rest. With just one blow, he destroyed the corruptor, whom the boys could not handle in a crowd. They were perplexed and did not understand who was helping them and how someone managed to kill such a monster with just one blow. Wang Ming noted that no matter what, the stranger was on their side, so he asked the team not to be distracted and continue fighting. As a result, Qin Feng killed all the corruptors, earning 40 experience, another evolution point, and a scroll of the Poison Arrow skill. Poison Arrow was a mid-range attack skill that was very important to the young man, and he wanted to level it up as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the team began to have problems. Wang Ming managed to repel one attack from the centipede worm, but a sudden second blow pierced his body. After this, he let his guard down, and the monster struck him again, leaving him on the brink of death. The cleric continued to heal him, but Wang Ming told the boys to leave him and run before they all died. And at that moment, when it seemed that there was no chance of survival left, a last hope appeared. Qin Feng suddenly launched a poison arrow attack and hit the monster right in the head, cutting its health in half. After some time, the monster died from poison. For killing it, Qin Feng received 600 experience, 2 evolution points, 55 days of exchange life energy, and also raised his level to 3. Moreover, a pleasant bonus for the young man was that the poison arrow did not cancel his invisibility. Since Qin Feng dealt 90% of the damage to the monster, he took all the loot from it. Wang Ming did not understand who saved him and his team, but he was extremely grateful and wanted to know the name of the savior. But Qin Feng decided not to show himself, and only advised them not to be so trusting, because in this wild world, everyone is capable of betrayal. However, Wang Ming could be a valuable ally, as he had the resource-rich Chinese government behind him, so Qin Feng could sell unwanted loot through him. After unlocking the monster's loot, the young man received 3 more evolution points, 55 days of exchangeable life energy, and the centipede worm leather leggings armor, which provides +9 defense against physical damage and +5 against any type of damage. In addition, they increased the reload speed by 15%, which could not but please Qin Feng. He was genuinely pleased that his leveling was going much faster, and he was looking forward to the moment when he would meet Fei and take revenge on him. However, the Secret Builds team's troubles didn't end there. After going a little further, they again encountered overwhelming monsters. This time, the monster was very different from those they had encountered before. His attack style was also quite unusual, and none of the guys understood how to fight against such an opponent. Ultimately, the team died and were reborn in the shell, and this death left them deeply upset. The players were confused and didn't know how to defeat these monstrously powerful monsters, because even numbers can't always win. People were dying one after another, and if things continued at this pace, their exchange life energy would soon run out, and real death would follow. Meanwhile, Qin Feng's nickname was at the top of the rankings, and while everyone else was only at level 1, he had already reached level 3. Zhang Li was sure that the young man had found some kind of cheat code, and she wanted to find him to force him to tell her everything, just to get out of this game. After which, the girl ordered to spread the word that she wanted Shadow to help them reach the 3rd level, and upon returning to the real world, she was ready to pay him a whole 10 million in cash. While the others were looking for loopholes and waiting for someone else to help them level up, Qin Feng continued hunting monsters. The young man had already managed to level up the Greedy Hand skill to the Platinum Emerald level, and now the chance of receiving additional loot was 160%, and there was also a 20% chance of receiving an item of a higher class. However, after wandering through the forest, Qin Feng came across the very same monster that had killed the team of guys with secret builds a few minutes ago, and it was called the Cursed Lord. It was a bronze-ranked boss, and right now it was devouring life energy to mutate to silver-ranked. The young man wanted to kill the boss, but his inventory was full, meaning he couldn't take the loot, so he put a mark on the map and decided to leave. Meanwhile, the news continued to spread around the city that Zhang Li was willing to pay 10 million to have Qin Feng help her level up. Qin Feng's appearance in the city caused genuine surprise among the others, because at first glance, it was clear that he possessed much greater strength than the others. After that, Qin Feng sat down right in the middle of the city and started selling unwanted loot. This caused even more surprise among the players. No one could believe that someone had already acquired such a number of powerful, by their standards, items. While the others were just amazed, a girl nicknamed Grey Rose, 11th in the shell ranking, also hiding her face, approached the young man and wanted to buy an ice skill from him. The price tag of 100 days of exchange energy didn't quite suit the girl, so she asked for a little less. But the young man explained that this skill would significantly speed up her development in the early stages of the game, and such a price was practically a gift. The girl offered to pay with money from the real world, to which Qin Feng replied that if she had it, she should exchange it for life energy from someone else, and only then come to him. Grey Rose asked to wait, and in the meantime consulted with the guys from her team, who were not against the purchase, since it was only thanks to her that they had recently reached the 2nd level. As a result, they transferred 100 units of life energy to her, and the girl promised to return everything in money in the real world. By selling the ice spell, Qin Feng earned 100 days of exchangeable life energy, and now his reserve was 368 days. But he didn't have time to rejoice, because at that moment, Zhang Li approached him. She immediately showed disrespect and looked down on him, claiming that she was giving him a chance to help her reach the third level, for which she was willing to repay him generously in the real world. Taking a closer look, Qin Feng recognized her, the same Zhang Li who, in her past life, had become the leader of a crime syndicate, seducing people into selling their life energy for real money, and then kidnapping and killing them until the state dealt with them. With this in mind, he refused her proposal, even despite the promises of a luxurious life, because soon cash would become useless, and the only currency would be exchangeable life energy. Zhang Li did not back down and continued to insist on her own, which greatly infuriated the young man, and he could not restrain himself, declaring that if she did not back off, he would kill her until her life energy reached 0. This frightened the girl and her companions, so they decided to retreat and not get involved with him again. Other players, on the contrary, were only too happy to purchase new items from Qin Feng to finally become stronger. However, no one yet knew that with the help of exchanged life energy, game skills could be used in the real world, and soon all those who boasted of wealth and origin would become nobodies. Even though Zhang Li retreated, she still harbored a grudge against him for threatening her, and was prepared to kill him upon returning to the real world. Meanwhile, a guy named Mao Li-jun, who had reached level 2, approached her and said that he could share a couple of secrets if her offer of 10 million was still valid. Zhang Li wanted to get him to talk, and although Li Jun said that he wouldn't reveal such things to just anyone, he still told the girl as an exception. He explained to her that, for example, to kill a worm, you need to invest all 5 points in dexterity. Then the player will be faster and will be able to defeat it. Of course, Li Jun wasn't as strong as Qin Feng, but he was still a good option, so Zhang Li offered him 5 million for his help, which he agreed to. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to hunt monsters, leveling up his skills and becoming stronger. He decided to return to the Cursed Lord, and as he thought, the monster had managed to mutate to the silver rank, but had not yet completed the process. The young man could have waited for the boss to reach gold rank and get even more precious loot, but that would have taken too long. Qin Feng decided not to hesitate and kill the monster right now, although it took a lot of effort because its health was 2 or even 3 times more than that of the bronze boss. And yet, dealing with him wasn't particularly difficult. Just 2 or 3 poison arrows were enough to kill him. The Cursed Lord himself was a magic-type monster, based on area of effect attacks that dealt colossal damage. If you fail to dodge at least one of his attacks, you can say that the player is already dead early on. Even for Qin Feng, who had already leveled up quite well, the Cursed Lord's attacks were deadly, so he was forced to dodge, waiting for the right moment to counterattack. Whenever the opportunity arose, Qin Feng would immediately fire a poisonous arrow at the monster. As a result, the boss's health dropped to almost 0, and, guided by instinct, he decided to flee. However, the young man was not going to delay, and decided to finish him off before he could escape. For killing him, Qin Feng received 1,800 experience, 4 evolution points, 124 days of exchange life energy, and reached level 5. And thanks to the Greedy Hands skill, he was able to collect additional loot, earning a total of 12 evolution points and 372 days of exchange energy. In addition, thanks to the additional effect of this same skill, one of the items increased its class from silver to gold. As a result, the young man's inventory was once again overflowing, which irritated him a little, so he hoped to find something like a storage ring among the loot. Meanwhile, one of the teams successfully returned from the hunt, and each of the guys reached the 3rd level. The shell rating was updated again, but Qin Feng still held the leading position. All the players were surprised and couldn't understand how he was able to progress so quickly, while Wang Ming suggested not to puzzle over it, but rather to return to the real world and warn the others. Since the game required level 3 to exit, the entire team of guys with secret builds teleported back to report what had happened. Having woken up, Wang Ming ordered everyone to be gathered immediately as an emergency situation had occurred. He then detailed what had happened, the world he'd seen, and the amazing player nicknamed Shadow to the police chief. However, no one understood why he'd returned to the real world if he'd reached level 3 before anyone else. A girl named An Yu suggested that perhaps the young man was a reincarnated person, as they often end up as orphans and progress very quickly. But her theory was immediately rejected, since the girl was too fond of reading such novels and often indulged in dreams. Meanwhile, the police chief noted that Wang Ming's words coincide with what is already being reported from above, and there is confirmation that many elderly people die shortly after entering the game. We also managed to gather testimony from several returnees. They said they died in the game several times, significantly shortening their lifespans. This means that death in the game is equivalent to death in the real world. At that very hour, an emergency order came from above. It was ordered to form teams to explore the game Lands Abandoned by God, and to begin creating a specialized army. This phenomenon impacted the entire planet, and countries began doing everything possible to understand what was happening. This became known as the international race. An Yu became the captain of the first team, and Wang Ming became the vice captain. They could choose their subordinates independently. An Yu was appointed as the captain because, according to Wang Ming, Shadow did not look like a villain, and she, with her character, had the best chance of getting close to him and recruiting him. Thus began a new test for humanity, requiring everyone's efforts. But no one yet knew that this was only the beginning of the horror to come. Meanwhile, rumors about the game spread more and more widely and became the main topic of discussion. Qin Xiao didn't understand why there was no news from Qin Feng, because usually he always tried to find an approach to her, and this time he even hit her. But at the same time, she didn't care, because the day before she had finally met Song Fei, whom she had dreamed of meeting for so long. This made her think, would she be able to meet Song Fei in the game if everyone ends up there as soon as they fall asleep? This thought made Qin Xiao restless, and she decided to ask her classmate Jiang Wei how to best level up in the game, since he had already reached level 3. She wrote to him and asked if he could share a couple of secrets with her, which Jiang Wei was only glad about, since he had long had his eye on the girl. After receiving some advice, Qin Zhao fell asleep, with the hope that she would meet Song Fei in the game. Meanwhile, Qin Feng obtained a gold rank cursed ring, which gave a bonus to all stats, weak point attacks, and provided resistance to dark matter. In addition, he gained the silver-ranked skill Shadow Slaughter, which allowed him to attack in one direction, dealing 3 hits to each enemy within range, with each cut counting as a sneak attack. The young man decided to spend a few evolution points on upgrading his Greedy Hands skill, thereby increasing the chance of receiving higher rank loot by 40%. He invested his remaining points into Shadow Massacre, but unfortunately, after leveling up, the skill's cooldown time did not decrease. Soon, he had a great chance to test his new skill on monsters. Qin Feng was attacked by several level 4 monsters, but he instantly cut them down with Shadow Slaughter. The young man didn't leave the monsters the slightest chance of victory, and didn't even let them get close to him. At this point, Qin Feng already had 618 days of exchange energy, but it would take at least 2.5 years to transfer all of his skills and artifacts into reality. However, if he sells all the unnecessary loot, he will be able to accumulate enough money, and then all that remains is to reach level 10. Meanwhile, he heard a familiar voice in the forest, and coming closer, saw Zhang Li and Li Jun there, who had agreed to meet in the real world to discuss the details of the deal. Moreover, Li Jun agreed to exchange his exchange energy for 10,000 for each, because he was confident that he would earn enough of it and would not worry about his lifespan. After this, Qin Feng headed to the city, where he activated the shell's spatial gate, which allows one to teleport to another gate once a day for free. But repeated teleportations require exchange energy. At the moment, the portal was only open in Shell, so the young man had to wait for someone else from the other cities to reach level 5. His goal was Firefly City, where Song Fei was supposed to appear. However, he didn't dwell on this because the main goal of the game is to reach level 10 and enter the Wasteland, where the real godforsaken lands begin. Before heading out to hunt monsters, Qin Feng held another sale in the city center and managed to sell everything he didn't need in just a minute, earning 650 days worth of energy. His exchange energy left him with just over 2,000. However, this was not enough for Qin Feng, because transferring all the skills and artifacts into the real world would require much more vital energy. At the same time, a female mage from Wang Ming's team approached him and asked if he needed the Space Ring. The value of this ring lay in its non-repository nature, of which a player could only have a maximum of 3. While the ring could drop from any monster, the chance was extremely low. In his past life, such a ring would have cost Qin Feng at least 3,600 days, but this time, the girl almost gave it to him, only asking him to add her as a friend. In addition, the girl asked him to join their team and help kill one gold rank boss. However, she knew nothing about it, only saying it looked like a battered boat. This led Qin Feng to believe that she was most likely referring to the rare Ghost Boat boss, which drops useful artifacts. Meanwhile, the young man wondered if the girl could be one of the legends from his past life, Koi Fish, because she was not only a member of Wang Ming's team, but also managed to find the Ring of Space and an extremely useful boss. The girl also said that after returning to the real world, she quickly ate and logged back into the game. And since she was alone, she decided to wander around the area a bit and accidentally stumbled upon a boat. This made Qin Feng even more curious about whether she was the same koi fish who could find the rarest items just by wandering around. After that, they headed to the boss, but their conversation was overheard by one of the robber players, and he reported everything to his superior. However, the girl was worried that the young man could become invisible, while she would hardly survive direct attacks from the boss. However, Qin Feng said that he didn't need her help, so he would go alone and immediately disappeared. Meanwhile, the robbers decided to attack the girl, first catch her, and then deal with the young man. But everything was not as they thought and wanted, because in fact, Qin Feng did not go to the boss, but hid so that they would not notice him. After that, he used Shadow Massacre and killed all the bandits, reducing their life energy. Li Ji didn't even have time to understand what happened, but soon, Qin Feng explained everything, and they finally headed to the boss. Meanwhile, Qin Feng's sister, Qin Xiao, had entered the game, had received the secret sacrifice build, and was eagerly awaiting the moment to show it off to Song Fei. At the same time, Qin Xiao wanted to level up as quickly as possible to teach Qin Feng a lesson and take revenge. Glancing at the leaderboard, she was shocked. While Jiang Wei was boasting about his measly level 3, someone had already managed to reach level 6. She wanted to find this player and join him. Meanwhile, she overheard Wang Ming's conversation with the other boys, who were complaining about the lack of a healer. Qin Zhao approached them and offered her help, saying that she just happened to have a secret build called Sacrifice. At the same time, Qin Feng and Li Ji were already right above the boss, thinking about how best to attack him. However, Qin Feng didn't hesitate for long. He ordered Li Ji to stay put, disappeared, and headed towards the boss. This boss was very different from the others. Under its influence, the location received the status of Bloody Domain, where the rate of loss of vital energy was increased by 100 times. In other words, 15 minutes spent in this place equaled 1 day of life energy. And that wasn't even the harshest Bloody Domain. Special bosses like these often have a strictly limited time, and the young man was lucky to have a full 45 minutes. So he decided to get going. Qin Feng struck one after another, combining the skills Shadow Massacre and Poison Arrow. However, one of the main difficulties with the ghostly boat was that players didn't understand its weakness. Many mistakenly believed it was the skeleton itself or the boat. In reality, its weakness lay in the ghostly bells hanging from its bow. But if you struck them, the boss would immediately begin interacting with the water's surface to unleash a terrifying attack. The water pillars inflicted colossal damage, and even a novice in silver rank armor would have been unlikely to survive a direct hit. If not for the young man's agility, he would have suffered the same fate. After completing the large-scale attack, the ghost summoned 12 water monsters, each no lower than silver rank. These monsters fought mercilessly, leaving no chance for escape. Furthermore, the main ghost summoned a new dozen every 3 minutes, but since Qin Feng was initially invisible, the monsters couldn't detect him. So, dealing with them with shadow slaughter wasn't difficult. Meanwhile, he warned Li Ji that he would soon die, but told her not to do anything, but simply wait until he was reborn, without going into explanations. At the same time, an angry crowd of robbers, thirsting for revenge, was heading towards them. Qin Feng continued to fight the boss and had almost defeated him, but the difficulty was that when the boss's health was reduced to half, he would produce a colossal spiritual emission. At his current level, even Qin Feng couldn't withstand it and froze for 5 seconds. In the end, everything happened as he expected. The monster unleashed a powerful attack, and Qin Feng died. Just then, the bandits arrived. But the surprises didn't end there. He still had something left to surprise the others with. Returning to the boss, he saw numerous spheres of energy. Li Ji told him that the bandits had returned again, but they had all been destroyed by the water pillars. The boss himself could only use the immobilizing spell once, and after that, reducing his health to 0 was no longer particularly difficult. There was only one complication left. When the boss's health dropped below half, there was a chance that upon receiving damage, he would teleport to another location. However, Qin Feng knew his habits very well, because in his previous life, he had suffered enough with the ghostly rooks. Even after the second death, the bandits didn't retreat and returned again for revenge. But this time, Li Ji herself decided to drive them away. By using divine lightning against them, the girl showed that they had better not stick their noses in where they weren't wanted. However, her attempt was not entirely successful, and the robbers ended up chasing her. But it didn't end there, because several more players were secretly watching them. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was nearly finishing the boss fight, and although the ghostly rook was only level 5, fighting it alone proved difficult. Even though his attention was focused on the fight, he still noticed the players watching him. However, this did not stop Qin Feng from defeating a gold rank boss, gaining almost 5,000 experience points, 7 evolution points, 216 days of exchange energy, and reaching level 8. Thus, the young man was the first to reach the gold rank, which surprised the other players even more. Seeing how much loot the boss dropped, other players wanted to kill Qin Feng and take it all for themselves. One of them used the archer skill Ghost Eagle, which was supposed to deactivate invisibility within the radius of action. But since Qin Feng's skill level was significantly higher than the archer's, it didn't work. The boys assumed the young man had fled, leaving all the loot behind. Realizing this, they immediately rushed to the trophies, hoping to get something valuable. But as soon as they approached the prey, Qin Feng instantly killed them all with the skill Shadow Massacre. Before examining the loot, the young man upgraded Greedy Hands to Diamond Epic rank, and now his chance for additional loot is 300%, and the chance of getting loot of a higher rank is 100%. Using his newly upgraded skill, Qin Feng gained 21 evolution points, 648 days of exchangeable life energy, and 2 Ghost Bell artifacts. Ghost Bells allow you to not lose life energy after death, and also have a passive skill, Soul Eater, increasing the life energy dropped by monsters by 20%. Moreover, if you have more than one pair, the effect doubles. In addition, the artifact has an active skill, Soul Shock, which allows you to immobilize all enemies within a 100-meter radius for 3 seconds. However, while Qin Feng was looking at the artifact, Li Ji was attacked, and she tried to reach out to the young man to save her. At the same time, a crowd of robbers surrounded the girl, and she stood right on the edge of the cliff. Li Ji decided to jump off the cliff so that the bandits couldn't even touch her, and in a sense, she even hoped that Qin Feng would save her. But the miracle did not happen, and the girl died, being reborn in the city. Qin Feng, of course, was not particularly happy with this outcome, but nevertheless asked the girl to wait for him in the city until he returned. Meanwhile, the young man now needs a whole 210 evolution points to level up his Greedy Hands skill, so he decided to invest them in attack skills for now. His damage increased several times, making him even stronger, and now, even without the invisibility state, Qin Feng could deal a lot of damage. Typically, a gold boss drops 2 to 4 silver tier artifacts, and the chance of getting anything gold is very low. But thanks to his skill, the young man received as many as 11 gold items and scrolls, as well as several platinum ones. Qin Feng managed to acquire a new weapon, the Twin Ghost Blades, a platinum rank weapon, which also had a special effect. Each normal attack dealt double damage. Besides this, he also got the gold-ranked Ghost Leather Armor, which will be a good armor for the first time. And to prevent other players from asking questions, Qin Feng decided to make the armor invisible. In addition to this, he also received a new gold rank skill, Blurred Shadow, which passively reduces damage taken by 15%, and when fully activated, grants immunity to all types of damage. In his past life, such a skill was considered of little use, since increasing the passive percentage was difficult. But now, everything has changed, and the young man can level up skills directly. Qin Feng was about to head to the shell to meet Li Ji and thank her, but he was met by bandits on the way. However, as soon as the boys realized who was in front of them, they immediately began to tremble and ran away as far as possible. But be that as it may, the young man did not want to let them go so easily, and in the end, reminded them of his strength. As a result, due to the fact that the young man killed too many players, he received the first level of the Killer status, and in case of death, he will lose 75% of his life energy. After some time, he finally returned to the city and again surprised the other players with his appearance. The guys immediately approached him, one of whom was Don Fangxiang, and he offered Qin Feng the assassin skill as an apology for that situation with the boss. Even though it was a normal assassin skill, Qin Feng took it and agreed to form a kind of truce. Feng Zhang himself was hostile towards Qin Feng and intended to find and kidnap him in the real world in order to learn the secret of his leveling up and make him his slave to collect life energy. Meanwhile, Qin Feng met with Li Ji, thanked her for her help, and also gave her the skill and necklace as a share from the boss. The young man also reminded her of the ring, after which Li Ji gave it to him and told him that while she was running away from the bandits, she came across a cave. And perhaps this was the entrance to the ruins. Considering how much use the girl was, Qin Feng realized that being friends with her was not a bad option. Before heading to the ruins, Qin Feng asked Li Ji where Wang Ming was, to which she replied that they were training a new cleric and would not be returning soon. Before Li Ji could tell him about that cave in detail, only saying that she had left a mark there, Qin Feng immediately went there. At first, Qin Feng wanted to look for a place to farm, but now he doesn't have to do that. There are only 3 types of ruins near the newbie village: tombs, cursed ruins, and temples of faith, which are chock full of bronze and silver monsters. There's not much to say about tombs, but they're usually populated by hordes of small monsters, and at the end, a golden boss awaits players. The monsters in the ruins are cursed by ancient evil gods, and may have been humans in the past, but for some reason became ghosts after death. Temples are inhabited by monsters that were once humans who worshipped ancient gods, and are usually the most confusing type of ruins. This time, the young man came across the Temple of the Ancient God of Justice, and if he manages to successfully clear it, he will be able to obtain a special item or skill scroll. Meanwhile, Wang Ming and the others continued to hunt monsters, leveling up their skills. However, they went to the monsters not only to level up themselves, but also to train a new cleric in the team. But things did not go smoothly, for Qin Xiao was so frightened that she forgot about her confidence, revenge, and goal. She was so terrified by what was happening that she was unable to concentrate and heal anyone, resulting in the death of the team. Returning to the city, Li Ji met them there and asked them to wait a little, saying that Qin Feng would return soon. Meanwhile, one of the team members was so angry at Qin Xiao that he couldn't even find the words to express what he thought about her. Li Ji wanted to protect the girl, saying that this was her first attempt, so there was nothing wrong with it. But one of the guys noted that this was not the first time, and in just 1 hour, they died about 3 times. Li Ji was surprised and at the same time declared that in that case, she would go with them. Besides, she now had 2 very interesting new items. Wang Ming noted that in that case, he hoped that everything would go well this time, and he would meet Qin Feng another time. Qin Zhao apologized to the boys, saying that she would try harder, but at the same time, she hated them deep down, because if it weren't for their connections with the shadow, she would never have even approached them. Meanwhile, Qin Feng explored the ruins, but after some time, he still didn't come across any monsters. However, as soon as he walked a little further, he encountered 2 loyal believers of the ancient god, condemned ones, silver-ranked, level 10 monsters. The young man decided not to delay with them, and using the skill Shadow Massacre, wanted to deal with them in an instant. But things didn't turn out quite that way, and even with the use of a sneak attack and invisibility, he only dealt a small amount of damage to the monsters. What surprised him even more was that the monsters bowed down to him again while he was invisible. Qin Feng was surprised, and at the same time, it made him think that most likely the monsters sensed the aura of the Eye of Justice, which is why they did not attack him. But suddenly, the monsters seemed to wake up and ran towards the exit. Besides Qin Feng, Grey Rose and her team also entered the temple, and the monsters immediately attacked them. In an instant, the entire team was killed, and all that was left of them was exchange energy. At the same time, Qin Feng was surprised that the temple was discovered so quickly, but so far, no one had the strength to clear it out except him. Besides this, he didn't understand why he still couldn't find anything. No traps, no treasure, only 2 condemned. Qin Feng decided that in this case, the answer might be hidden within them, and since they themselves did not say anything, he decided to kill them. Using greedy hands, he obtained 32 evolution points, 1,504 days of exchangeable life energy, 4 gold artifacts, and another 10 silver ones from the monsters. In addition, he also found something for the assassin, the Medallion of the Believer of gold rank, which gives agility, reload speed, and has a unique effect of summoning the condemned. Moreover, after the murder of the condemned, the mechanism in the temple began to operate. When I pressed the mechanism, it immediately activated, making it look like it was an elevator. After which, having descended, the young man found himself in the temple catacombs, which are not found in every temple, and even in Qin Feng's past life, he managed to explore only a few such places. There are plenty of traps in these places, but since people can be used as cannon fodder in this game, they don't pose much of a problem. It was only a matter of time. At the young man's current level, he would have died from any of the traps, but he had the Medallion of the Believer, which allows him to summon the condemned. Therefore, Qin Feng decided to use his pet monster to explore the catacombs and avoid running into traps himself. But since the danger was still present, the young man decided to level up his Shadow Massacre skill a little to the epic level, and to level it up to the legendary level, he needed 10 times more evolution points. Initially, the higher the level of an artifact or skill, the more profitable it is for the young man to level it up. For example, for an initially epic item, leveling it up to legendary will be his first step and will cost only 1 evolution point. And even if we take into account that with such a high leveling, the cost increases by 10 times, 1 times 10 is still 10. Then if Qin Feng manages to find an epic skill or item, he can easily level it up to mythical, ancient, or even immortal level. The young man decided to invest his remaining 11 evolution points into the Shadow Walk skill, which increased the duration of invisibility along with the sneak attack bonus and cooldown. Meanwhile, the condemned one had already found one of the traps and died right in front of Qin Feng. Since the young man could only summon a monster once every 600 seconds, he had to wait for the cooldown to end, and he couldn't do anything about it, as it was the safest way. Meanwhile, the Grey Rose team arrived on the first floor of the temple again, surprised that the monsters that killed them had disappeared. Moreover, they also did not detect their life energy, which led the girl to the idea that, most likely, the shadow was here. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to explore the catacombs, losing the condemned one after another, and eventually found the end of the catacombs. It took the young man about 3 hours to finally find the exit, and this made him happy. He ordered the monster to open the door, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't do it. But as soon as Qin Feng opened the door, everything worked out for him, and the young man eagerly waited to find out what was hidden behind that door. Upon entering, Qin Feng saw an unknown chest in the center, and around it, one could say there was nothing else. Taking a closer look, he saw an unfamiliar girl, whose name and any information were hidden by the system. Qin Feng saw such an NPC for the first time, and before he could understand anything, the girl immediately disappeared, only saying something in her own language. Besides this, the vines that bound the chest also disappeared. The young man didn't fully know who this girl was, but he was sure that she was somehow connected with the Eye of Justice. Meanwhile, he decided not to waste time and opened the chest, which glowed bright gold, which meant that something epic lay inside, but at the same time, it could not be a chest at all, but a mimic or a trap. Not wanting to take any risks himself, Qin Feng ordered the condemned one to open the chest, causing it to glow even brighter. Inside was the epic assassin skill Gift of Mercy, which has a passive effect that gives a chance to increase damage by 100% when hitting a weak point. In addition, the damage multiplier for such a hit is doubled. In addition, the skill had an active effect. The player's next attack inflicts the Flesh Tear effect, which deals 100% of the damage from the previous attack per second for 3 seconds. The skill Shadow Massacre had a similar active effect, but it required multiple hits, while Flesh Rip only needed 1. Moreover, the skill was epic, meaning Qin Feng would be able to upgrade it to Legendary with just 10 evolution points. Returning to the city to meet Wang Ming's team and give them some items as a token of gratitude to Li Ji, the young man was surprised to see a crowd of players from different cities. The news that portals to other newbie cities had finally begun to open couldn't help but make him happy, because now he would finally be able to go to Firefly City for Song Fei. After making his way through the crowd, the young man finally met Li Ji and the others. However, what surprised him most was that he saw Qin Xiao and Wang Ming's team. Qin Feng didn't understand how Qin Xiao had managed to sneak into Wang Ming's ranks, since it was because of her that his team could collapse. Moreover, the young man himself should also be careful, for the whole world now knows about the shadow, so he should be more vigilant so as not to reveal his true identity. However, the young man handed over several artifacts and skills to Wang Ming, saying that they could pay for them later. Wang Ming thanked him, saying that if he ever needed help, they would do everything in their power. The boys began to divide the skills and items among themselves, and soon discovered that they had nothing for the priest. Qin Zhao asked the young man if he had anything for her, and tried to add him as a friend under the nickname Miss Elegance. However, Qin Feng didn't respond, and simply disappeared into the shadows. Of course, the young man had a couple of gold artifacts and priest skills, but he didn't even think about giving them to someone like Qin Xiao, and was thinking about trying to find another priest to replace him in their team. Over time, the number of unwanted items would only increase, and holding a sale in the square would take too much time. So Qin Feng wanted to establish connections with Wang Ming, who had an entire state behind him. When talking about replacing the priest, he thought of Gu Yishui, the leader of the Godslayer Guild from his past life, who had a hidden priest build called White Bird Priestess, that allowed her familiar to be imbued with healing and buffing abilities. Moreover, Yi Shui was the only priest who could kill the Golden Boss without any help, and she also came from Firefly City. Therefore, Qin Feng decided not to delay and went to Firefly City to find Yi Shui, as well as his sworn enemy, Song Fei. Firefly was very different in appearance from Shell and looked emptier. After eavesdropping on the locals' conversations, Qin Feng learned that Song Fei, leading a crowd of female fans, had gone to the Valley of Crying. The Valley of Tears is a Tier 5 area that is home to the Heat Demons and prisoners, and the two-headed Heat Demon is a Silver Tier boss. However, the situation was rather strange, and instead of fighting monsters, the guys fought each other. And among the crowd, he noticed Song Fei, standing behind the backs of his fans, who were loyally protecting him. The girls killed anyone who tried to get close to Song Fei, no matter who it was. Song Fei himself chose the mage class, and his nickname was the God of Magic, Defiant to the Heavens. In his past life, he forced his female fans to also take the mage class, and then took away their artifacts and skills to level up faster. The team couldn't consist exclusively of mages, but they found a way out. Some invested all their points into intelligence, becoming damage dealers. Others focused on agility to distract enemies. Others on health, becoming living shields. And the rest pumped up strength and became disgruntled melee warriors. The girls were willing to sacrifice their lives just to protect Song Fei, which seemed crazy. They didn't care that, having lost their life energy, they would die in the real world because they were only driven by their sympathy for the idol. While his fans desperately fought the demon, protecting Song Fei at the same time, he saw them as nothing more than a resource. Now, Song Fei wanted to level up as quickly as possible, overtake Shadow, and become the first in the game, gaining even more popularity. However, Qin Feng wasn't going to let that happen, so he showed off his strength and cut off Song Fei's head in an instant. After this, he instantly killed the two-headed heat demon, as well as several of its minions. The rest of the guys were shocked by what they saw, because the whole crowd couldn't kill the boss, but Shadow dealt with it in an instant. Meanwhile, Song Fei was reborn in the city and received a system message that he was killed by the Shadow, as well as the loss of 1,106 days of exchange energy and 18 years of non-exchange energy. Song Fei didn't understand why he killed him, and at that moment, another girl approached him, asking to join the team. At first, the fans wanted to kick her out because she was an archer, but Song Fei said it didn't matter. The girl turned out to be not just an archer, but the owner of the skill Eagle Eye, which reveals invisibility, which is what Song Fei wanted to take advantage of. All the fans blindly believed Song Fei, thinking that he valued each of them, but things were completely different. Song Fei himself was waiting to meet Shadow in order to kill him in front of the others and prove that he was the strongest player. At this time, Qin Feng used the skill Greedy Hands and received another 16 mutation points, a lot of loot and exchange energy. He immediately invested his evolution points into the Gift of Mercy skill, increasing the chance of hitting a weak point by 200%, meaning the area of this zone doubled. Qin Feng was pleased with this boost, but after doing the math, he realized that leveling up his skills would require a lot more evolution points, so he invested the remaining 9 into Sneak Strike. In addition, killing the boss and several players brought him 1,400 days of exchange energy, which was also nice, and he decided to return. But as often happens, trouble appeared suddenly, and someone attacked Qin Feng. However, the young man was not taken by surprise by such a sudden attack, and it was not difficult for him to dodge it. Of course, the attackers turned out to be Song Fei's fans, who decided to avenge him. Qin Feng immediately hid using invisibility, but the girls thought that it wouldn't help because they had an archer with the Eagle Eye with them. But while using invisibility, Qin Feng also cast it on the girl who attacked first, and the archer mistook her for Shadow. In the end, they all pounced on her at once, without even thinking that this was not an enemy at all, but their ally. However, they did not feel any guilt, claiming that this was God's punishment for her lack of love for Song Fei. At this time, Qin Feng used Ghost Bells and immobilized the players. Then, using Shadow Carnage again, he shortened their lives, showing that even with surprise attacks, he was not so easy to kill. Song Fei watched everything from the side and didn't notice how Qin Feng suddenly appeared next to him. He tried to defend himself with a magic shield, but it was destroyed by Qin Feng's poisonous arrow. And in the end, Song Fei was defeated again. But with his life force remaining, he could still be reborn. While Song Fei was full of vital energy, his devoted fans had almost none left, because they gave everything to him. Qin Feng was surprised by such frivolity, and the fact that many people still thought that they had entered an ordinary game that would not go beyond the game world. Meanwhile, Song Fei was furious and didn't know what to do to defeat Qin Feng, and he only had 500 days of life energy left. The archer explained to him that she had used her skill, but for some reason, instead of Shadow, she had seen their sister. One of the girls suggested that his stealth level was much higher than his archery skill, which is why she couldn't detect him. After this, Song Fei decided to change his farming location and went with his servants to look for a new one. Returning to the city, Qin Feng did not notice Song Fei and his company and was surprised, thinking that they had left the game. The young man asked a passerby if he had seen Song Fei and the others, and he kindly pointed him in the direction, while also asking him to spare his girlfriend, nicknamed Kitten Feibao. Qin Feng advised the guy to change his girlfriend and disappeared again. The only problem was that the young man only knew the approximate direction, and the exact distance remained unknown. So he decided to postpone the search. Instead, he decided to look for Yi Shui. And what luck it was that he accidentally met her in the city. Qin Feng greeted her and asked if she could help him, which made the girl incredibly surprised. The young man asked her to find Song Fei and promised to sell her a golden artifact at a very cheap price as a reward. Yi Shui was surprised that someone knew about her abilities, although she had not told anyone yet. But she still agreed to help the young man. She asked Qin Feng if he was afraid that she would take the artifact for herself and run away, to which the young man responded by asking if she didn't hate Song Fei. This amazed Yi Shui even more, because she saw the young man for the first time, and he already knew a lot about her. She thought that they knew each other in the real world, but soon decided that it was not so important, and sent her familiar to look for Song Fei. The search did not take long, and Yi Shui quickly found Song Fei and the rest of the servants. After Yi Shui handed over the coordinates, Qin Feng immediately rushed there, asking her to add him as a friend beforehand and continue tracking Song Fei. However, on the way, he noticed something strange. The trees around him were unusual. Qin Feng then asked Yi Shui to look around and tell him if there were any more trees like this. Yi Shui told him that there was another tree 100 meters ahead, and another one on the left at the same distance. There were unknown symbols depicted on the trunks, so Qin Feng decided to touch the tree, hoping to unravel its secret. And something actually happened. As soon as the young man touched it, 3 trees around it connected with each other, and an unknown beam appeared in the center. Soon, in place of the beam, a jade treasure chest appeared. A real treasure. The young man remembered that these symbols represented the blessing of the ancient gods, which could appear anywhere in the game, and to unlock it, one had to find and activate all the symbols. Sometimes they summon a boss, sometimes hordes of weak monsters, but there is also a chance of a treasure chest appearing with unique rewards. Such a chest was worth thousands of days of exchange energy, but Qin Feng had no intention of selling it, and instead decided to open it, and found the skill Blooming Curse inside. It was a universal skill of the Jade rank. If used within 15 seconds of the target's death, a cursed flower would grow on the corpse, sucking out the player's metabolic energy until it was completely depleted. An incredibly powerful skill that could kill players by draining their energy to 0, and Qin Feng was going to test it on Song Fei. Meanwhile, Song Fei and the others fought the monsters, killing the weaker ones one by one. This result pleased him. He wanted to level up as quickly as possible and take revenge on his offender. However, not everything went as smoothly as he expected, and suddenly the guys noticed some other players and took them for a threat. Song Fei said they were Jia Qi's fans, and his fans immediately attacked them. Being loyal to Song Fei, the girls were hostile to Jia Qi's fans. The boys didn't understand which Jia Qi they were talking about, but before they could figure it out, Song Fei's servants killed them all. As a result, Song Fei once again emerged from the fight unscathed, having received a considerable amount of vital energy. At this moment, Qin Feng approached them, and what he saw made his hatred for Song Fei grow even stronger. Qin Feng appeared suddenly, and no one expected his appearance. Moreover, before the others had time to understand anything, Song Fei's head had already rolled on the ground. After that, Qin Feng used the skill Blooming Curse, and an ominous flower grew in place of Song Fei's head. Song Fei himself was reborn in the city and was incredibly angry at the Shadow, not understanding why he was targeting him specifically. But what surprised him most was that the system informed him about the draining of his vital energy. At first, he thought it was a penalty for dying too often, but soon his fans came back to life and told him that Shadow had grown some kind of flower on him that seemed to be drawing something out. Song Fei decided that the best thing for him and the fans was to quit the game, buy exchange energy in the real world, and exchange it for equipment so that he could then take revenge. Meanwhile, spider lilies bloomed on the bodies of the dead, and Qin Feng received the 4th level of the Killer status. And now, if he died, he would lose almost 97% of his life energy. However, he was unable to suck out all the energy, and the young man himself did not yet know the reason for this. Yi Shui was also watching him, unable to believe what she saw, and that someone could possess such monstrous power. The girl told Qin Feng that Song Fei and his fans had left the game, after which the young man asked her to be on guard and let him know as soon as they returned. Before leaving, Qin Feng also offered Yi Shui the golden skill Divine Justice Sword, and she couldn't refuse it. When they met again in the city, Qin Feng said that he was willing to sell the skill for half the market price under one condition, and this made Yi Shui wary. Qin Feng explained that he didn't mean anything inappropriate, but simply wanted to invite her to join a team. Meanwhile, Wang Ming and his squad continued to stubbornly fight the monsters, hoping that one day Qin Xiao would learn to use his skills. Wang Ming was poisoned and asked Qin Xiao to purify it, but she never learned how to use skills and instead used an attack skill to purify it. As a result, Wang Ming could not bear it and died from poison. He was furious because they couldn't find a worthy priest with a secret build, and with Qin Xiao, their campaigns were doomed to failure. Qin Xiao herself naively thought that she was doing everything right, since she had already reached the 4th level, hoping to soon meet Song Fei. Just at that moment, Qin Feng contacted her and offered Wang Ming a powerful mage nicknamed White Bird Priestess. Of course, Wang Ming couldn't refuse such an offer, so before leaving for Firefly City, he told Qin Xiao that they were going to another city, and it was too dangerous, so she wouldn't go with them. Without waiting for her answer, the guys ran to the teleport. Qin Xiao got angry and decided to find that very genius so that they could level up together and take revenge on Wang Ming and the others, not even suspecting that this genius was Qin Feng himself. Wang Ming transferred 800 units of exchange energy to Qin Feng for the previous equipment, promising that Captain An Yu would give the remaining 500 as soon as he logged in. However, he didn't have to wait long, and as soon as Wang Ming mentioned her, she immediately appeared. An Yu played under the nickname Justice Execution with the secret build Dragon Knight, and was one of the top 20 players in Qin Feng's past life. She was a true colossus of China's official powers, and also a nightmare for foreign factions. Meanwhile, An Yu asked him if he was going to kill her, since she was the one who kept all the life energy of the Shanghai authorities. To this, Qin Feng assured her that he was not that stupid, because he would gain more from cooperation, and he also understood that, although An Yu pretended to be a naive fool, every action of hers was thought out and strictly calculated. At the same time, Song Fei's fans found that their life energy was almost at zero and wanted to turn to him for help. Qin Zhao woke up in the real world and, looking at her life energy, realized that she could almost consider herself a millionaire, because at the current exchange rate, 1 day is equal to 15,000 yuan, and she had as many as 200 days. But at the same time, she learned the sad news. Shadow began hunting for Song Fei, which even made the girl cry. Qin Zhao understood that if the life energy in the game reached zero, the person would die in the real world as well, and she could not allow Song Fei to die. In Song Fei's fan chat, she saw an announcement that he urgently needed help with his life energy. Upon learning this, Qin Zhao immediately ran to Dajiang Square, where Song Fei was located, to give him her energy. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to level up, exploring new locations and killing monsters. After some time, the young man reached level 10. All of his stats increased, and class growth was unlocked. Moreover, other players also saw a notification that the player Shadow was the first to reach level 10. Not only had Qin Feng reached level 10, but he had also leveled up his sneak attack skill to Emerald, and he had around 7,000 exchange energy. But even so, according to his calculations, it was still not enough. In order to leave the newcomer village, the young man needs to wait for 6 more level 10 Shanghai players to open a portal to the continent abandoned by God. And yet the young man was not upset, because while the others were leveling up, he wanted to return to the real world to sort out some matters. Of course, when Qin Feng spoke about real-world affairs, he was referring to the transfer of game abilities. Having spent his life energy, the young man transferred his class, equipment, and skills to the real world. In addition, he also transferred 2 levels, which required 2,000 exchange energy. To transfer the skill Shadow Walk, he spent 900 exchange energy. And for the skill Poison Arrow, he spent as much as 2,262. After all these changes, Qin Feng was twice as strong as an ordinary person, and his agility surpassed all human capabilities. Before leaving, he just found out where Song Fei was right now, and he decided to head there to kill him right there. Meanwhile, he received a message from Chief Hu Kubing that a certain young lady had her eye on him, but the young man didn't care. Unlike others, Qin Feng understood that the game Lands Abandoned by God would soon replace the real world, and everyone would be forced to play it. Meanwhile, thousands of his female fans gathered at the square where Song Fei was located. Song Fei was certainly happy about this, as he understood that each of the girls present was ready to sacrifice their life energy to him, even without taking payment for it. Meanwhile, Jiang Li told him that she had already sent people to find him in the real world and then hand him over to Song Fei so that he could take revenge himself. There have been similar cases in the past, and those who offended Song Fei were punished with very cruel methods. At the same time, a guy appeared in the crowd of female fans and told them to stop mindlessly wasting their energy, because if their energy dropped to zero, they would die in the real world. Song Fei started being called a murderer, so he decided not to stand still, but to clarify the situation a little. Using his status and charm among female fans, he made it seem like there was nothing wrong with his actions, and that their giving him their energy was just a way to help him during such a difficult time. Even though there had already been an official statement regarding energy and life in the real world, everyone believed Song Fei's words and did not consider his actions to be terrible. Moreover, the fans began to trust him even more and were ready to do anything for him just to be close. At the same time, one of the fans came onto the stage and also declared that none of them would ever dare to doubt their flawless idol. It looked truly strange and terrible, but it was a reality in which people obsessed with idols existed. Song Fei was about to thank everyone, telling them how much he loved and appreciated their support, when suddenly the unexpected happened. An assassination attempt was made on the idol. Someone blew off part of his head with one shot. It was a real shock. Right in front of everyone, a famous idol was killed. Security immediately escorted Jiang Li out to prevent her from accidentally suffering the same fate. The girl herself noted something strange. Before Song Fei's death, she saw a ball of vital energy appear on his body and then immediately disappear. She was more than sure that the ability from that game had killed him, but she didn't understand how game skills could be used in the real world. But when Jiang Li realized who it could be, it was already too late. for Qin Feng did not leave her alive either. It was a real revolution in the real world, and the day when everyone stopped perceiving God-forsaken lands as a simple game. After this, news spread around the world that the star idol Song Fei had tragically died in Dajiang Square, and some of his extremist fans had committed suicide right next to their idol's body. At the same time, intelligence agencies stated that the death of the young idol was caused by unnatural causes. Qin Xiao couldn't believe what was happening and was sure that Song Fei was killed by Shadow because it was he who killed him in the game. Moreover, all the evidence pointed to a person with assassin skills. The girl didn't understand how someone managed to use abilities from the game in the real world, but at the same time, it became motivation for her to become stronger. Qin Xiao was obsessed with the idol and couldn't imagine life without him, so she promised herself to become as strong as possible, find the Shadow, and kill him. Meanwhile, Qin Feng was recuperating and decided to have a bite to eat at a local eatery. However, his meal was interrupted by a message from Yang Qin Xiao, a colleague at work, in which she warned the young man that if he did not show up for work today, his boss would fire him and not even pay him. Qin Xiao Ya had a pretty good character, and although her weakness made her the target of others' ridicule, in the young man's past life, she was a member of his guild. So this time, he advised her to go to the game instead of work. After chatting for a while, Qin Feng told her about the game and also gave her some valuable advice for a good start. The young man considered his boss a complete idiot, but the real thorn was his boss, Chang Shishi, the daughter of the Chang Group chairman, because she did nothing in the company except have fun with other guys. Chang Shishi rented a hotel for herself and 6 middle-aged foreigners, gave 3 African Americans a ride in a sports car, and now she's tagged along with Qin Feng. In Qin Feng's past life, Chang Shishi was exactly the same. She even left China to organize the American Alice in Wonderland Guild because she was crazy about everything Western. There were also rumors that many of the guild leaders had intimate relationships with her. But if she died, she would never create her own guild, and the bond between the leaders would weaken. At the same time, Qin Feng called Qin Xiao to inform him in her own way that she had earned enough money to buy a house for herself, so she didn't want to see him anymore in the future. Qin Feng didn't care what Qin Xiao thought of him, or what she thought of her plans for life. The young man himself decided that having dealt with Song Fei, it was time to return to the game, because very soon, people would understand that gaming skills could be transferred to reality, after which chaos would begin. Qin Xiao and her friend also went to the game, and she kept trying to persuade her to apologize to her brother and establish contact with him. But Qin Xiao stubbornly refused. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao asked Zhang Wei to get the assassin skill scroll for her, promising to fulfill his wish, and he, of course, could not refuse her. Qin Zhao wanted to use this scroll to somehow get closer to the Shadow and prove her loyalty to him. She was sure that if she fought side by side with him, he would gradually begin to trust her and even see her as a lover, and then at that moment she will kill him with her own hands, gouging out his eyes and avenging Song Fei. But her plan failed. Zhang Wei contacted Qin Feng, who called the skill trash, after which he relayed this to Qin Xiao, who realized that her entire well-thought-out plan had gone down the drain. At the same time, Qin Feng came across a very interesting boss while wandering around the area. It was a level 8 gold-ranked arthropod boss with a level 2 anti-stealth ability, making Qin Feng's invisibility useless against it. Because the boy's invisibility didn't work on him, he couldn't attack at full strength using the damage bonus. But fortunately, thanks to the legendary Gift of Mercy, the chance to hit a weak point increased by 200%, and 3 of the 9 cuts of Shadow Carnage hit it and dealt triple damage. However, the boss also had something to surprise the young man with, and despite the fact that he had taken a lot of damage earlier, he continued to fight. However, this only surprised the other players who were watching Qin Feng's battle, as it was not his first time fighting this boss. In his past life, Qin Feng and Qin Xiao had failed to defeat this boss, but now the young man realized that brute force was not enough to defeat the monster, and that he needed to guess its movements and sense its rhythm. Qin Feng eventually defeated the boss, earning experience, evolution points, and exchange life energy, and using greedy hands doubled his loot. In addition, he received the Platinum Assassin skill Ultraviolet Shield, which converts the player's resistance level into an invulnerable shield for 8 seconds. Moreover, the shield had a conversion rate, and for every 10% of resistance, the player received 1 layer of invulnerable shield. And after Qin Feng upgraded the skill to the epic rank, there were as many as 7 of these layers. He invested a few more evolution points into the Poison Arrow skill, raising it from silver to emerald rank. Qin Feng also received new equipment from the boss and immediately equipped it, making him even faster and stronger, and his health reached 1,517 points. At the same time, the Grey Rose team approached him, and the guys did not hide their admiration for the young man. Before leaving, Qin Feng sold Grey Rose the 7th level skill Ice Burst for 800 exchange energy and went on to explore the area. Besides this, he also contacted Wang Ming and offered him some items for sale. And he, of course, was only happy to hear it. However, Wang Ming had one question for Qin Feng regarding the recent incident. He directly asked him if it was true that he was the one who killed Song Fei. The young man decided not to even try to deny it or lie. So he confessed to Wang Ming that he was the one who killed the idol. Besides, even if he lied, it wouldn't help, because Wang Ming, being his friend, knew that he was leaving the game, and the time and method of the murder pointed to him. Qin Feng also realized that if Wang Ming asked him about this, it meant that the Chinese authorities already knew about everything, so he even became curious about how they would react. Meanwhile, Wang Ming was not alone. An Yu was also with him, surprised that Qin Feng confessed to the murder, even though they considered him the main suspect. An Yu told him that during the investigation, they found out that Song Fei and Jiang Li were plotting against him and kidnapping players and forcing them to work for them, so his murder could be considered self-defense. Qin Feng understood their intentions because they didn't know who he really was and hoped to continue cooperating with him. But this was to his advantage. However, he came to them not only to discuss the murder of Song Fei and Jiang Li, but also to sell some equipment and skills. Qin Feng told them the prices for each lot, and An Yu immediately agreed without even trying to bargain with him. The young man again received more than 10,000 exchange energy, and there was something interesting here. When the exchange energy exceeds 10,000, it is counted in years, and 60 years is about 22,000 days. Translated into foreign currency, this is about 400 million, and even for the state, this is a huge amount of money. But the investment was worth it, because the results will outweigh the costs. And with the help of new skills and equipment, strong teams will emerge in Shanghai. Meanwhile, An Yu noted that the Dazhang group was holding many players captive, so they were going to rescue them, inviting Qin Feng to join them. Qin Feng was surprised that An Yu, turning a blind eye to the murder, was trying to recruit him. But he still decided to refuse. However, before leaving, Qin Feng told them that their guess was correct. He really did use game skills to kill Song Fei and Jiang Li, and it would be possible for them too once they reached level 10. An Yu understood Qin Feng's hint. The Dajiang group also knew something, so they began buying up energy so that when their people reached level 10, they could climb to the top. After this, An Yu suggested to Wang Ming that they split up to level up. Since everyone on their team was high-level players, one-shotting the mobs would be of little use, and leveling up separately would go faster. Right now, their main priority was to reach level 10 as quickly as possible to try and prevent chaos. Qin Feng himself went to the city and wanted to acquire information about the location of the silver and gold bosses, promising a generous reward in the form of exchange energy. Li Jun approached him and said that Jiang Li was willing to pay him 300 million yuan and shares of Dajiang Group in exchange for agreeing to accompany her. Since Li Jun had not yet logged out of the game, he did not know that the girl was dead until one of the players told him about it. Li Jun was surprised and at the same time happy, because after Qin Feng refused to accept the money, he fell for it and decided to cooperate with Jiang Li. He thought that he would have to beg for this money, but as soon as he arrived at the place, he was immediately knocked out, and he woke up in the basement. As a result, he was forced under torture to collect energy for Jiang Li and lure new victims. So Li Jun was only glad that she died. Qin Feng knew that Li Jun was also involved in Jiang Li's shady dealings, but he denied it and quickly ran away. At the same time, the same Chang Shishi joined the game, although she was not particularly happy about it. She spent a lot of money on buying equipment and skills, leveling up her melee combat, and then began killing other players to steal their energy. This angered Chang Shishi, because if it weren't for this game, she would be doing her usual things. Even though everyone already knew that this wasn't just a game, and there was a case where the skills were used in the real world, Chang Shishi didn't give up her pleasure. Moreover, she was especially interested in Shadow, since it was he who killed Song Fei, with whom Chang Shishi also had contact. After this, Chang Shishi logged out of the game, and before that, she asked her people to find someone who would help her contact the Shadow. Chang Shishi wanted to find him and offer him a good amount of money and energy to kill Qin Feng in the real world, without even knowing that he was the Shadow. At the same time, Qin Xiao joined Jiang Wei and explored the game world with her friend Chu Yang, but she still hadn't learned how to properly use her skills. However, Qin Xiao herself continued to act arrogantly, and after her hunger reached 90% in the real world, she immediately logged out of the game. Her behavior irritated Jiang Wei, and he noticed that the girl had changed immediately after meeting the Shadow, so he wanted to show her that he was also worthy of respect. Qin Zhao woke up in her new apartment, where there was complete chaos, and the refrigerator was completely empty, as if a mouse had hanged itself in it. Moreover, the deliveries were not working, and this reminded the girl of the times when Qin Feng cooked food for her. But she immediately drove away such thoughts, believing that her brother was useless to her, and freedom was much more important than his care. At this time, Qin Feng was hunting bosses, and in just an hour managed to kill 4 silver ones at once, receiving 16 evolution points from each. He also upgraded his equipment to gold level and above, and collected a lot of trophies from bosses, which he could sell in 3,500 days on average. His overall skill cooldown was reduced by 75%. And since there were no platinum bosses near the newbie towns, gold was the limit. To become stronger, he needed to upgrade his class. Platinum bosses have anti-stealth at least level 2, so Qin Feng needed to level up to level 3, which required another 20,000 points. In his past life, killing a single platinum boss had taken a lot of effort. But now, he was confident that he could handle them alone. In addition to hunting, he was engaged in trade, selling unwanted loot, and had already accumulated 105 years of exchange energy. On the way, a player stopped him and offered him huge amounts of money and energy to kill Qin Feng. The young man was surprised, because in essence, he was now being asked to kill himself, and he decided to ask what he had done to upset Qin Feng so much. However, he did not answer, and only said that for his death, they would pay 3,000 days of energy, which is equal to approximately 50 million. Qin Feng was surprised that someone was willing to put such a bounty on his head, especially since such threats had previously only appeared in the middle of the game. But without thinking twice, he realized that the only one who could have both motive and money was Jiang Shishi. If she had simply wanted to kill him, she would have done it a long time ago, which means the reason was different. Qin Feng guessed that her goal was to reach the shadow, and she didn't even suspect that it was him. He understood that Jiang Shishi was eager to take revenge for his refusal, and was even surprised that she got down to business so quickly. So he agreed. The young man stated that he would fulfill the order, but only for a 50% advance payment, and with the right to choose the time himself, after which the player immediately transferred energy. Moreover, he gave him personal information about Qin Feng, including his residential address. After this, they parted, and the young man said to wait for the result. But the surprises did not end there. A girl approached him and said that she knew where the golden boss lived. Qin Feng replied that he would pay only after confirmation, and she agreed, offering to follow her. On the way, the girl told him that the boss's name was Plague Man, and that Qin Feng had met someone like him in his past life. Its main feature was a poisonous ring that dealt damage to anyone who came too close. Having confirmed that her words were true, he transferred to her the promised 100 units of exchange energy. But then the girl warned him that it was a trap. As soon as he started the fight, players would appear who decided to kill him. She added that they had a second-level anti-stealth artifact, but Qin Feng merely replied that it didn't matter. However, the girl said that even her warning was part of the plan, because when the players arrived, she would have to stop them in order to earn his trust, and then track him down in real life. She admitted that she was forced, but she herself does not want to harm others. Moreover, she named the name of the customer. It was Fang Xiang, the same one who tried to steal the ghost rook from him, and then slipped him a fake skill. After that, Qin Feng went to the boss, saying that he would turn Fang Xiang's plan against him. The girl tried to dissuade him, because Fan Xiang had already led 3 teams of 18 people here, and the boss had dealt with them in less than half a minute due to the powerful poison. But Qin Feng didn't listen, confident in his own strength and that the boss wouldn't be a problem for him. He activated 3 skills at once: Gift of Mercy, Sneak Attack, and Flesh Rip, dealing colossal damage. With this single attack, he took off 2/3 of the boss's health, dealing over 80,000 damage. After that, he retreated to a safe place to wait for reloading, and at the same time for Fang Xiang to appear. Just then, Fan Zhang's men appeared, pretending to attack the girl. She immediately activated the protective shield, and Qin Feng understood why she was given this role. While everyone was focused on her, the young man used Shadow Massacre, destroying everyone. He didn't stop there, and used the Blooming Curse to prevent them from even having a chance to return. After seeing Qin Feng's true strength, the girl realized that it was not in vain that she betrayed Fang Xiang and abandoned his plan. Once the mercenaries were dealt with, the young man finished off the boss and received the usual trophy for his rank. However, after using greedy hands, he was pleasantly surprised. The boss dropped a new platinum skill, Moment of Darkness, which allowed him to blind enemies with a blade from a distance. This move perfectly enhanced his fighting style. Now he could double his damage even without activating invisibility, and the level of anti-stealth ceased to matter. He was only missing 10,000 experience before he could upgrade, which he decided to get by fighting regular mobs. By methodically exterminating hundreds of monsters, Qin Feng finally gained the experience he needed, although it took a long time. After which he activated the promotion, increasing the class from 0 to 1st. His characteristics have been enhanced. His strength, constitution, agility, and intelligence have increased. In addition, he received a passive effect. Invisibility now lasted twice as long, and stealth could be activated even during it. Additionally, he unlocked 2 more passives. One raised his stealth level to the second, and the other strengthened his sneak attack. Meanwhile, a system announcement sounded. 7 players in the Shanghai district had reached level 10, and the portal to the Forgotten Continent would open in 10 minutes. Qin Feng noticed many familiar nicknames in the rankings, whereas in his previous life, they were mostly foreigners. This meant that the effects of his trading were finally beginning to show. In the real world, there have been large-scale raids on the Dajang group, and many of the gang members have already been arrested. All the main figures were captured by the police, except for 3 who were still hiding in the game. The law enforcement officers were proud that they had managed to destroy such a large group, and Qin Feng played a huge role in this matter. He not only passed on information about the criminals, but also revealed a way to apply gaming skills in reality. If the authorities had waited any longer, the Dajang members would have reached level 10, making them much more difficult to apprehend. The young man had become an important figure for all of China, and the state sought to cement a strong alliance with him. Meanwhile, Qin Feng added the girl sent by Feng Sheng as a friend and told her to immediately report him as soon as he showed up. However, now he was much more concerned about the new location, the Forgotten Continent. In reality, players rarely use city portals, but only a select few had access to intercontinental gates. Cities like Rakushka and Firefly were considered newbie zones, while the real game began on the Forgotten Continent. Having moved there, Qin Feng experienced déjà vu. Everything was exactly like in his past life. The ruins of Shanghai lay before him. All the newcomers found themselves in the ruined city of their district, and their location coincided with the real geography. Why this was so, no one knew. But one thing was clear. The danger here increased many times over. Before he could properly look around, a level 11 Earth Purple Worm monster descended upon him. Although it was an ordinary mob, its attacks had monstrous power and could cause serious damage. But for Qin Feng, such enemies were familiar for a long time, and he did not experience any difficulties. There were no safe zones on the Forgotten Continent. Monsters would attack at any moment. But one could find a refuge in the ruins, turning it into a stronghold and taking control of the territory. The best of these hideouts was in northwest Shanghai. That's where his guild had been located in his past life. Meanwhile, other players reached the new continent, and their shock knew no bounds. They were amazed at how much it all resembled the real Shanghai. But there was no time to admire the surroundings. The monsters were not going to wait. Unlike Qin Feng, for most people, such monsters were new, and they were unable to deal with them quickly. Nevertheless, thanks to well-coordinated teamwork, the guys still managed to defeat the first monster. While Qin Feng did all this alone, the other players needed to work as a team to avoid dying. Wang Ming realized that the new continent was much more dangerous than their past, so he asked Yi Shui to explore the area with the help of his bird. Through the eyes of her familiar, Yi Shui saw quite a number of monsters around her, all of them approaching them as their fight attracted a lot of attention. Yi Shui also tried to find Qin Feng, but only saw scattered loot along the way to the northwest. An Yu noted that the area cleared by Qin Feng would most likely be much safer than the one they were currently in, and ordered everyone to run there immediately. Besides this, the guys also hoped to find Qin Feng by following his hot trail. At the same time, Qin Feng continued to cut down the monsters, one after another, without any difficulty. Even without the bonus from the Gift of Mercy skill, the damage from Shadow Massacre reached 30,000, which allowed the young man to easily reach the shelter from his past life. This refuge was the ruins under which was a palace, which Qin Feng found only in the middle of his previous game life. The palace contained over 1,000 rooms and dozens of halls. It was the largest refuge in Shanghai, and became the home of the Godslayer Guild. Before it was discovered, it was filled with a horde of mechanized mobs and bosses, because the larger the shelter, the stronger its guards. In his previous life, Qin Feng founded a guild and gathered 3 groups of 18 elite fighters, each level 15 and well-equipped. But even so, they barely managed to survive back then. And now, Qin Feng himself went to clean up the palace. However, this time, Qin Feng was confident that he could handle the shelter alone, and the first room was Purgatory. There were several guards in Purgatory who immediately attacked Qin Feng as soon as they saw him. However, they did not pose a particular threat to him, because he was prepared for such an attack and used the skill Moment of Darkness. After that, dealing with the blinded monsters with the help of Shadow Massacre did not cause any problems. This couldn't help but please the young man, because in his past life, clearing out the shelter was quite a task, whereas now he was doing it alone. As a result, 15 monsters in the main hall were destroyed. But Purgatory is still full of rooms and halls, which will take a lot of time. However, this was only to Qin Feng's advantage, because thanks to all these monsters, he would be able to accumulate a lot of experience and evolution points. But what's most interesting is that when all the normal mobs are destroyed, the main boss guardian will appear. At the same time, foreigners also began to open a portal to the Forgotten Continent and saw for the first time the ruins of New York, London, and other cities. And the battle with the first monsters caused them much more problems than the rest. Meanwhile, Wang Ming and the others hid in the ruins, waiting for the monsters to completely lose track of them before they could go looking for Qin Feng. An Yu noted that this was indeed surprising. She thought that they were all already strong enough, but it turned out that it was still better for them to hide behind the shadow. Meanwhile, Yi Shui once again scouted out the surroundings and saw that the trail formed from the loot had suddenly stopped for some reason. While others were wondering where Qin Feng was and why his trace had suddenly disappeared, the young man continued to clear the shelter and had already killed all the guards. After a considerable amount of time, he cleared 4 halls, more than 1,000 rooms, and also killed about 400 mobs, in addition to 4 bronze and 2 silver bosses. At that same hour, Wang Ming decided to contact him, informing him that they had found the loot that he had not picked up, and said that they were willing to pay for it. Qin Feng replied that he would contact him later, saying that this was far from all that he could sell him. After that, Wang Ming left him the coordinates of the bunker where they were hiding, and Qin Feng went to the final part of clearing the shelter. In place of the Guardian boss, the Angel of Purgatory, Facer has appeared, a level 15 Platinum boss that must be defeated to take control of the refuge's territory. Facer was the strongest monster in the city ruins, as well as the highest-ranking boss, with around 750,000 health and 3 battle phases. In his previous life, his thunder attack had almost cost Qin Feng his life, despite him wearing a full set of golden armor. But now the youth was confident that things would be different. Qin Feng decided not to hesitate and immediately attacked the boss, using his strongest skills, Shadow Massacre and Flesh Rip. However, he still had to remain vigilant, because if his lightning hit him, with his current level of protection and electrical resistance, he would be finished. After all, attacks from bosses of Platinum rank and above have a high chance of hitting, and if regular mobs, with their 75% evasion, have only a 25% chance of hitting them, then for those like Facer, it increases to 50%. In his previous life, Qin Feng's team had barely survived thanks to the cleric's shields and luck. But this time, the young man was confident that he could defeat the boss. Having lost a certain amount of health, the boss entered the second phase, when Facer becomes invulnerable and begins to create ball lightning, and the player must destroy them. Otherwise, the boss will enter Berserk mode. In the past, this attack had wiped out their team, after which Qin Shao had gone berserk and refused to participate in the next raid. And strangely enough, the team succeeded without her. Using Poison Arrow, Qin Feng destroyed the ball lightnings one after another, and each destroyed sphere also dealt damage to the boss. Thus, after some time, the boss's health was reduced to a decent level. After this, the final third phase began, when Facer uses constant area attacks. That time, Qin Feng's entire team was equipped with electricity-resistant armor, and 4 clerics were casting shields at once, and they still barely survived. However, in this life, Qin Feng won't have to go that far, because this time, he will be attacking the boss from the air. Using the skills Gift of Mercy and Ultraviolet Shield in conjunction with Shadow Massacre, Qin Feng dealt devastating damage to the monster. The blow was so powerful that Facer died instantly, and after killing him, Qin Feng reached level 11, received an insane amount of exchange energy, as well as a lot of free experience and evolution points. Moreover, the young man became the first in the world to kill a platinum boss, thereby earning 10 reputation points and becoming the Keeper of Purgatory. The shelter itself can be used not only as a safe place, but also as a storage facility, from which everything can be pulled out into reality. From the start of the game, weapons in the overworld began to rust and deteriorate, especially the most dangerous ones, such as nuclear bombs. They became useless from the first day, and the equipment soon turned into ordinary scrap metal. In other words, since then, Earth's conflicts have been conducted solely through the game's capabilities, but the shelters, which could be transported into the real world, are capable of creating a magical barrier, making them the safest place on the planet. Since this place was the base of his guild in Qin Feng's previous life, it brought back good memories, but back then, countless people came and went in his life, all with their own problems. But this time, Qin Feng is determined to remain alone until the very end, not letting anyone near him. At the same time, Qin Shao, Qin Feng's formerly beloved sister, died time after time and still couldn't get used to the game world. Her faithful friend Chu Yan was with her all this time, so they often died together. At that very moment, the system announced that Shadow was the first in the world to kill a platinum boss, which caused displeasure in Qin Zhao, because while others were dying from ordinary monsters, someone had already killed a platinum one. However, Qin Feng didn't care what anyone thought of him, because he strictly followed his plan and didn't deviate from the path. Qin Feng decided to use the acquired evolution points to upgrade his greedy hand skill, raising it to legendary rank, and now the chance of additional loot has increased to 500%. Immediately after this, he used this skill and received another 100 evolution points from the boss, as well as 2 assassin equipment and 1 skill that he could not use due to his level. Then he summoned the condemned man and ordered him to gather all the loot into one pile, and decided to spend the remaining evolution points on upgrading non-epic skills to epic. Thanks to this, he upgraded the skills Shadow Walk, Sneak Strike, Blooming Curse, and Moment of Darkness to epic, becoming even stronger. Moreover, with the development of the Blooming Curse, the young man gained the ability to absorb non-exchangeable energy from the air, and high-level territories and monsters already possessed this ability, meaning Qin Feng would be able to suck the energy back. At the same time, the same girl contacted him and told him that Fan Jiang and his family were currently gathering at the Jiangnan restaurant, and she also learned that they had bought up a lot of energy and were planning to spend it on skills. After which, Qin Feng decided to collect all the remaining loot and head to Wang Ming to sell everything he didn't need. And he didn't even expect that greedy hands would turn out to be so useful. Arriving at the coordinates that Wang Ming had previously left for him, he saw the other team members there, as well as An Yu, who wanted to throw herself into his arms. However, Qin Feng pushed her away, saying that he only came here to sell a few items. An Yu decided not to hesitate or even bargain, but immediately bought everything that Qin Feng offered. Before leaving, Qin Feng only gave them a little advice. Under the monument in the center of the city there is a staircase, by going down which they can find a teleportation circle back to the City of Beginners, but it will take 500 days. After that, An Yu shouted that as she said, Qin Feng was reincarnated. Otherwise, how would he know about it? Besides, this made the girl think that it was time to move on to the next part of their plan regarding the young man, and try to get closer to him. Meanwhile, Qin Feng decided to return back to the real world, spending a whole 27,000 exchange energy to transfer the abilities. When Qin Feng returned, he seemed to have become a completely different person, and the aura around him was monstrously frightening. The first thing the young man decided to do was to leave his home, since Chang Shishi already knew his address, and since it would take him about 1,300 years of energy to transfer the purgatory, Qin Feng decided to look for a temporary shelter. He had no difficulty carrying things, as the greedy hand skill was almost like his second inventory, holding a lot of items. But before finding temporary shelter, Qin Feng decided to go to the restaurant where Feng Sheng's family was currently dining. The restaurant was 15 minutes from the young man's home, but with his speed, it took him 10 minutes to get there. At this time, they were just discussing how the Dongfan family would soon spread its influence through gaming skills and rise to the top of everything. Fan Sheng himself hated the head of the family because he believed that he was already 1 foot in the grave, and therefore the role of head should go to him. When the old man asked about the situation with the shadow, Feng Xiang replied that there was no need to worry, as he had already sent a girl to him who would help reveal his true identity. However, none of them even suspected that Qin Feng was already standing at the door of the restaurant and preparing to attack them. But at the same time, the young man did not think that the local guards would be armed, so he decided to call the condemned man and send him first on reconnaissance. Qin Feng ordered the monster to enter and kill everyone, leaving no one alive, as it had good stamina, capable of withstanding even direct shots. As soon as the monster entered, they immediately started shooting at it, thinking that this would somehow help kill it. But ordinary weapons were like a mosquito bite to him, which he did not pay attention to. Eventually, the condemned man reached the Dongfan family, killing everyone. However, Fan Xiang still managed to escape by taking advantage of the moment. Or at least he thought he managed to escape. In fact, Qin Feng expected such actions from him, because as soon as he wanted to run away, he instantly cut off his head. And in order to prevent Fan Xiang from interfering with him in any way in the future, he used the skill Blooming Curse. Thanks to this, Qin Feng finished off the Dongfang family, and also earned 27,000 years of exchange energy and 482 years of non-exchange energy from them. The effect of the Blooming Curse this time was monstrously enormous, because not only were all the corpses and blood erased, but their lifespans were also shortened. While Qin Feng's unchangeable lifespan has reached a full 2,327 years, meaning there is no longer any point for him to go into the wildlands. Meanwhile, the police arrived at the sounds of gunshots and screams, hoping that it had not escalated to a shootout. However, once they entered, they saw nothing that resembled a shootout, as if nothing had happened. They immediately began combing everything around, hoping to understand what happened in the restaurant. But Qin Feng carefully cleaned up the traces, and Qin Feng's next target was the Chang Company itself. But there was a problem. Their headquarters had moved to North America long before the game came out, and at the moment, only Chang Shishi, the daughter of the company's CEO, Chang, remains in ruins. Qin Feng wanted to kill Chang Shishi before she left the country, but the journey from Shanghai to the ruins was almost 300 kilometers, which is 2 to 3 hours on foot, which is quite expensive. Therefore, Qin Feng decided to put off killing Chang Shishi for now and head back to the game world. As soon as the young man entered the game, An Yu immediately contacted him and told him that Li Ji had found the entrance to the catacombs, but they were guarded by a gold-rank spirit, and asked the young man for help. Qin Feng asked her how they managed to find the entrance to the catacombs, and An Yu explained that on their way back to the city, they made a small detour to avoid the crowd, but noticed that there were fewer people. They wandered for half a day, and at one point, Li Ji fell into a hole, and it was useless to call anyone since this was a special area of the catacombs. After entering and finding the entrance blocked by a level 12 gold rank boss, the boys managed to escape. Qin Feng was amazed at how stupid the guys were, who couldn't go a day without getting into trouble. But the catacombs, like the Temple of Faith and the Cursed Ruins, were random phenomena of the wild nature. After that, he asked An Yu for the coordinates and went to the entrance of the catacombs, and was surprised that Li Ji managed to literally fall into the well during her walk. Descending, the young man entered the Tomb of Hatred catacombs, where remote communication was out of reach. There, the spirit of hatred was waiting for him, the very same gold rank level 12 boss that An Yu had told him about. The young man had never encountered such mobs in his past life, but judging by its appearance, the boss should have a stronger physical attack and a longer striking range. However, no matter how strong he seemed, it was not difficult for Qin Feng, with his current strength and skills, to defeat him, since the boss had quite a strong defense, causing the damage of Shadow Massacre to be only 80% of a normal attack. Qin Feng decided to finish him off with Pierce, just in case. However, everything turned out to be not as simple as it seemed to the young man at first glance. Suddenly, the boss's hand came close to him and exploded, and if Blurred Shadow hadn't worked, there would have been nothing left of the young man. In Qin Feng's past life, there was an incident where they met a new boss, and after killing him, one of his comrades ran to the loot, but the body exploded and nothing remained of him. But usually, bosses of platinum level and above are capable of this, so such an ability from a gold boss greatly surprised Qin Feng. From the boss, he received a new gold rank skill, Shadow Blade, which allows him to use dark power and deal damage with a shadow blade to all enemies within a 5-meter radius. This skill was quite useful for Qin Feng, and by upgrading it, he would make it even stronger, increasing its attack range and damage. Although the overall damage from a single area attack was small compared to Shadow Massacre, Qin Feng could effectively deal with weak mobs in this way. In addition to the new skill, the young man also received a gold-level Leather Armor of Hatred, which increased his attack power if the player was attacked. At the same time, Qin Xiao still couldn't survive in the game, and she even died from some goblin. Returning to the real world, the girl again began to look for someone to turn to for help. This time, the choice fell on another classmate, Han Han. He agreed, but on the condition that she spend one night with him. This option did not suit her, so she decided to turn to another, Zhang Qin Xiaoyu, who was in love with her. But he also refused, saying that if she abandoned her brother, then she would abandon him too. After some time, having written to everyone, Qin Xiao still did not receive the desired answer. At this moment, Qin Xiao was just thinking about Qin Feng, realizing that if he were by her side, he would never abandon her. So she wanted to try to renew communication and ask for help. After which, the girl decided not to delay with the apology and headed towards their house. She was sure that after a few kind words and apologies, her brother would forgive her, because she did not think that she had done anything bad towards him. But she rejected the option of apologizing, and instead wanted to pretend to be vulnerable and wait for him to perfect her skills, considering it his duty for all the pain he had caused. Then, after reaching a high level, Qin Xiao planned to just send him away and started knocking on the door. Since no one opened the door for her, she knocked it down, but there was no one inside. The young man didn't answer her calls either, and Qin Xiao was confused as to whether he had really left. Meanwhile, Qin Feng continued to explore the Spirit of Hatred's catacombs. After some time, he finally reached the last coffin, in which, as he hoped, some gold-tier boss was sleeping. He did not dare to open it himself, so he ordered the condemned man to do it. As soon as the monster touched the coffin, a strange and frightening aura began to emanate from it. Moreover, an unknown force killed the condemned man, which led the young man to the idea that it was most likely the golden boss, Deadly Miasma, which has no physical form, which is why it is immune to physical attacks. This reminded Qin Feng of how a similar boss had been released in his previous life, and its poison had spread throughout the area, causing many players to die. Moreover, if a player is possessed by a spirit and there is no comrade or specialist with invulnerability skills nearby to protect them, then it is certain death. The young man didn't want to let the boss get close, so he first used the Shadow Blade skill. Thanks to this, Qin Feng was able to see the boss's core and killed it with an instant attack. By using greedy hands, the young man received a rare artifact, Riding Bell, from the boss, which, after use, summons a ghost night wolf that can be ridden and fought on. In addition, the wolf had the skill Pursuit, which is activated while riding, increasing movement speed by 245%, as well as Night Hunt, which allows you to remain in a state of level 1 invisibility during the dark hours. In addition to all this, there were 2 more skills: Bite Hail, an offensive move, as well as Wolf's Mouth, which increased attack power, physical defense, and total elemental resistance by 35 units for an ally for 1,800 seconds. Such an artifact could not help but please Qin Feng, because it was one of the best means of transportation at the early stage. After which, the young man decided to level up to level 15 to prolong the life of the beast. And the next time, after logging out of the game, go to the ruins, kill Chang Shishi, and get rid of the problems. Qin Feng planned to level up in the Jianghai Arena, which occupies a huge surface area and has 2 dungeons, as well as a dangerous environment with a horde of monsters. It was best to avoid such a place, as it was extremely dangerous. But for the young man, it was an ideal way to gain experience. The other players had also explored the Forgotten Continent, and fighting monsters no longer presented them with any particular problems. The mayor of Jianghai City's son, Ma Nailiang, who was secretly in love with Anyu, also joined Anyu's team. Anyu noted that even though it was only a level 8 boss, it still took them about 10 minutes to kill it. The girl, meanwhile, asked whether it wouldn't be easier for Ma Nailiang to deliver a finishing blow to the beast, but he stated that his status did not allow him to do such a thing. In addition, he said that he heard about a certain low-level shadow hunter who commits murders not only in the game, and that he knows one Hunter from the Ruins Police who has a level 3 stealth protection. Ma Neilang's idea was to lure Shadow into a trap to find out his true identity and take control of him. Otherwise, he might kill them all. But his words only made Wang Ming and Anyu laugh, and they explained to him that everything was not as he thought, because it was they who were hunting the Shadow, and not he who was hunting them, in order to then cooperate with him. However, there was something that was bothering Wang Ming, namely the incident at the Jiangnan restaurant where the Eastern family disappeared without a trace after dinner, and perhaps the Shadow was involved in this. Anyu noted that she understood what he was getting at, and she also suspected that the young man had something to do with their disappearance, but they had no evidence. However, Anyu stated that even if he was somehow involved in this, she preferred to work with him. Wang Ming wanted to know why Anyu had so much trust in him, but their conversation was abruptly interrupted when one of their team members reported a strange incident. The boys arrived at the Jianghai Arena and found that all the monsters around were dead. Wang Ming assumed that there was a whole team here, but Anyu was sure that this was the work of a young man. While Ma Nailiang continued to be indignant, Anyu contacted Qin Feng and offered to sell them any unwanted loot if she had any. In an instant, the young man was in the arena, looking angrily at the dissatisfied Ma Nailiang. At the same time, Anyu was beside herself with surprise and wanted to ask Qin Feng where he got such a wolf. Qin Feng explained that all this was thanks to their coordinates with the catacomb, and meanwhile decided not to delay and said that they could take all the loot that was lying on the ground. Looking at him, Ma Nailiang was furious because Qin Feng had just disgraced him in front of everyone, and he promised to get even for it. Meanwhile, having cleared the arena, the young man acquired a new gold skill, Silent Stealth, which, after entering a state of invisibility, allows him to remain unnoticed until he attacks someone or moves. In addition, he earned a lot of evolution points, which allowed him to upgrade other skills. In addition, thanks to the upgrade, he received the 4th level of stealth, and now no one will be able to notice him, and thanks to the Shadow Veil, his evasion reached 83%. Along the way, Qin Feng came across a new boss, the Steel Maiden, whom he had also met in his past life. In the past, she appeared in the slums of Jianghai, and the number of people who went on a crusade after her reached 1,000, and the death toll was more than 4,000. In fact, she was the guardian of a shrine called the Church Sanctuary, the 2nd largest shelter in the Jianghai slums. Qin Feng originally wanted to deal with the boss after killing Chang Shishi, but his plans changed slightly. Meanwhile, one of the teams of players had already challenged the boss, but the battle was going unsuccessfully for them. But among all the players, he noticed one from his past life, and his name was Chen Wuming, who had a hidden build called Templar. In their past life, they fought for 9 years, but they could not determine the winner because Chen Wuming was a deceitful and evil person who lost time after time, but did everything to escape. At that time, the Steel Maiden was destroyed by Chen Wuming's guild, the Templars, and then rumors spread that the gods of the West and the Temple of the East were slaughtered. Qin Feng's guild controlled the western and eastern parts of the Jianghai slums, while the Templars only recruited knights, forcing them to sign a contract with a lifelong tax of 50%. Therefore, Qin Feng did not want to allow something like this to happen in this life, so he decided to deal with Chen Wuming as well. He killed all the players, including Chen Wuming, and then used the skill Blooming Curse. The guys didn't understand how this happened, but they weren't planning on giving up, and Chen Wuming told the others not to give up, but instead to look for a new place to farm. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao, whose life energy was already barely holding on to 0, also joined the Templars, and after this incident, it decreased even more. With such a short lifespan, the girl was on the verge of death, which is why she decided to join Chen Wuming and do black work. But Qin Feng did not feel sorry for her. Besides, now the young man needed to focus on his own battle with the boss. After all, no matter how strong he considered himself, and no matter how confident he was in his skills, this was still not an ordinary boss in front of him. The young man wanted to launch a surprise attack from the air by combining the skills Gift of Mercy and Blade of Plague. Gift of Mercy, together with Pierce, allowed to inflict huge damage, and Plague Edge poisoned the enemy for 3 seconds after using the skill. Qin Feng's tactics worked, and he managed to knock off more than half of the boss's health. But it didn't end there, because the reason why she was called a Guardian was because she was transitioning to the second phase, when after losing half of her blood, the sealed evil demon would awaken. Once this happens, all damage will be reflected back to the attacker in the same amount. Moreover, there is a legend about a portal in the demon's stomach, and all those who are absorbed by it will find themselves at the foot of the volcano. However, the second stage of the Steel Maiden had one weak point. After an attack, the invulnerability would temporarily turn off, which allowed Qin Feng to attack her from behind. Meanwhile, Qin Feng noticed several other players who had been spying on him for a long time and wanted to extract some benefit from them. The girl who was with them could summon a rabbit that could detect invisible objects, but her familiar was unable to notice the Shadow. The team leader, nicknamed First Offender, decided that Shadow had already left since the girl had 3rd level of invisibility, and he didn't believe that the young man had already reached 4th. The First Offender was famous for killing the gold boss in the first town without receiving a single scratch, and his Spirit Warrior class had a 100% evasion effect while spinning. Thanks to his unique abilities, he could easily dodge the Steel Maiden's attacks, but he was unable to get close to her. But as soon as the First Offender realized that the perfect time had come to attack, he immediately took his stance. He used the technique Dancing Under the Moon, Edge Through, using the 3 Shadow Sword like a shooting star. However, he didn't stop there and immediately used the Lightning Maneuvering Blade Tip technique. The First Defender was confident that his attack would deal incredible damage to the boss and kill him without any difficulty. But things didn't turn out quite as he had expected, and as a result, he died. All this time, Qin Feng was attacking the boss, which reduced the boss's health by 2/3, while the First Defender dealt one but powerful blow, which actually doomed himself to death. Moreover, with his skills, it was simply impossible to defeat the Steel Maiden, because during the roll, he could not attack, and when he attacked, he received a counterattack. Now the boss's future fate depended only on Qin Feng and whether he could defeat him. The other players, upon seeing Qin Feng, were surprised and couldn't believe that his invisibility level was 4 or even higher. The first thing the young man did was use the level 10 Ultraviolet Shield skill, which allowed him to withstand some damage. He then attacked the boss with Shadow Carnage, which lowered the shield level to 7. But it didn't end there, and after Qin Feng's attack, the boss struck back with a more powerful one. The boss's attack destroyed Qin Feng's shield, and the damage rate of his fire projectile was quite high, and even with 80% evasion, he managed to penetrate 7 layers of shield in a second. At the same time, one of the players tried to steal the loot right from under Qin Feng's feet, for which he was punished with death. To increase his chances of success in the boss fight, Qin Feng decided to gradually absorb his attacks with Ultraviolet Shield and attack with the usual Shadow Massacre. Despite the fact that this was a long process, it was the safest, which allowed the young man to defeat the boss without much difficulty. For killing the Steel Maiden, who turned out to be Platinum ranked, the young man received 48,000 experience points, as well as 120 evolution points and the key to the church sanctuary. The boss's loot was also quite impressive, as Qin Feng got the Ice Armor of Hatred from him, as well as the Gift of the Black Flame, which applied a 5-level Black Flame effect to the target, weakening their defense and resistance to elements. In addition, he received a new Pearl-level skill, Assassin's Instinct, which allows him to see a person's silhouette while invisible. The young man immediately spent the evolution points he had received on upgrading his skills, becoming several times stronger. At the same time, An Yu came to him with the rest of the guys, which surprised Qin Feng because he did not expect to see them here. The guys were amazed that Qin Feng was able to level up to level 13 in just one night, while they hadn't even reached half of level 11. Qin Feng sold them all the unnecessary loot as usual, and in passing, he asked An Yu if she knew a place where he could hide some item well. An Yu noted that they had just heard that there was no safe zone in the abandoned city of Jianghai, and that players could use this place as a base, a sort of hiding place. She was referring to the caches that dropped from gold bosses, but they, being residents of Jianghai, had never found a single one. Qin Feng said that in that case, they understand the value of the cache that dropped from the boss, namely the key to the church sanctuary, the cache of which covers an area of 800 acres. The offer was truly tempting, and the larger the cache area, the stronger the defense and the more powerful the infrastructure. And 800 acres could easily accommodate the residents of Jianghai City. The young man asked An Yu to think about it with the team, and then announce his price, and he would decide whether to agree or not. An Yu said that they would discuss the matter, and in the meantime, asked him for help. Just now, 7 gold-rank bosses had appeared in Dark Moon City. And speaking of this, the girl hinted that they wanted to ask the young man to deal with the bosses. She also noted that they found a way to kill one boss, but no one could have imagined that he would resurrect. And in addition, all the stats of the 7 bosses were increased. This made Qin Feng think that an ancient family curse might be to blame, but he didn't even want to think about such a thing. After this, the young man headed to the Dark Moon City, having previously received payment from An Yu in the amount of 10 years of life, which was quite good for Qin Feng, since the drop from 7 gold bosses could be sold for 50 million. If the young man had run on foot, it would certainly have taken a long time. But thanks to the wolf, the journey was not long. On the way, he saw several girls beating up another girl, and her face looked like Qin Shao's. The girls were unhappy that Qin Shao, having just joined the guild, had already tried to seduce the leader, for which they decided to teach her a lesson. If it were the old Qin Feng, he would have protected his sister and punished the offenders. But now, everything is different. The young man made his way into the city through a secret room located under a huge statue in the center of Jianghai, which almost no one knew about. However, entry was not free, and the first time you had to pay 500 days, the second 1,000, and so on. Over time, the first city will become a more developed area. Mobs will become bosses, and caches will be filled with treasures. But now the young man decided to fully concentrate on the bosses in the Dark Moon City, because if this was truly the work of the ancient board, it could not be missed. After spending 500 days, the young man teleported to a city where a safe zone was located. Meanwhile, he witnessed a conflict between the guys from the Shahi Dreams Guild, who demanded that his grandmother transfer energy to them in exchange for the help they had provided. However, the grandmother considered this outrageous and declared that she would not give them anything, demanding that they give her everything for free. For such impudence, Qin Feng grabbed her and killed her in an instant. After that, he disappeared and moved on, noting the location of the Shahi Dreams Guild. At first, this guild was engaged in social activities, helping the elderly survive in the game for free, and later it was officially recognized and supported. In the future, where chaos reigned, such people would be worth their weight in gold, and Qin Feng was ready to kill those who dared to rebel. At the same time, Chu Yan and her parents fought together against the monsters. The parents asked their daughter why her friend Qin Xiao did not join them, but joined the Templars, who collect large taxes from their guildmates. Chu Yang replied that Qin Xiao did not agree, even though she tried to persuade her, saying that they were a public organization, and they had a lot of players like her who were not skilled in anything, but were willing to help each other. The Chu Yang family had a relaxed playstyle, only killing common monsters and trying to avoid encounters with bosses. Then suddenly the unexpected happened. Someone attacked them in a wild area where killing was prohibited. These were the same players who only wanted to kill those weaker than themselves. They demanded energy from Chu Yan and her mother, otherwise they would take it by force. But Chu Yan said that she wouldn't even think about it, and wanted to delay the attackers for a while Mom asked for help on the guild channel. However, they didn't have to wait long for help. Moreover, someone they didn't expect to see at all came to them. That someone turned out to be Qin Feng, who instantly cut off the head of one of the players, while the wolf devoured the rest. Having respawned in the city, the boys immediately tried to escape, but were immediately caught. Immediately after their respawn, they were arrested by official hunters for their involvement in the murder of players. At the same time, Chu Yan thanked Qin Feng for his help, because it was thanks to him that she and her mother remained alive. Qin Feng was surprised by how nice Qin Xiao's friend turned out to be. Her kind-heartedness and bravery were not even close to comparing to his sister. Moreover, he was even glad that their paths diverged and they ended up in different guilds, and therefore did not take energy from Chu Yang's father. After that, Qin Feng immediately left, and Chu Yan was amazed at how kind the Shadow, who ranked first in the world, really was. After some time, the young man finally reached the boss spawn point, and if everything goes smoothly, today he will be able to improve his skills. Some people saw world-ranked 7th-ranked experts sacrifice 7 tablets in battle to summon an ancient boss and kill a legendary one. And the Ancient God's tablet itself creates bosses. Bosses have unique combat tactics and abilities, and sometimes their stealth level is so high that players passing by die without even noticing them. For this reason, it may appear as if bosses that have already been killed have been resurrected again. And resurrected bosses are also known to be affected by the Berserk effect. There were rumors that resurrection occurred after killing one, but no one knew what would happen if they were all killed at once. This is exactly what Qin Feng wanted to find out. First of all, he summoned the condemned man and ordered him to attack the bosses. However, this did not last long, and just a few seconds later, the condemned man died. The young man realized that firstly, all the bosses were level 10. Secondly, attacks from behind didn't work on them. And thirdly, their stats were twice as high as those of gold bosses. Considering all this, Qin Feng decided to attack the bosses using the skill Shadow Blade. The first thing that surprised him was that the skill didn't do much damage to them. And the second was what happened after his attack. Something truly terrible and terrifying happened. After Qin Feng's attack, all the bosses rallied together. Moreover, ancient hieroglyphs appeared on the monster's body. Misfortune, heaven, antiquity, faith, darkness, and deity. The entire sequence translated as Uthos, ancient god of the apocalypse, which gave the young man the idea that the body parts should be attacked in alphabetical order. His theory proved correct, and he was able to land a good hit on the boss, attacking all the hieroglyphs. However, it didn't end there. It was just the beginning of something bigger. Suddenly, the boss split again into several parts, each of which settled in its own coffin. The characters on these coffins corresponded to the monsters, which led Qin Feng to the idea that they should be killed near the corresponding coffins. The only thing that was partly encouraging was that, according to the Ancient God's tablet, this stage was the last one in the boss fight. At the same time, the other players were confused and did not understand what had happened. The boss suddenly disappeared, and the ground began to collapse. Meanwhile, An Yu ordered them to leave there immediately, saying that Qin Feng had already dealt with the boss. The young man summed up the results of today's battle. He managed to increase his level to 14, and also received about 294 evolution points. But the most important thing was that he was able to take possession of the Ancient God's tablet, which was subject to an ancestral curse and had yet to be dealt with. The tablet could be applied to any equipment attached to the ancestral curse, after which an additional effect would be applied, depending on the equipment and the player's characteristics. Qin Feng decided not to hesitate and cast Uthos's ancestral curse on Gift of the Black Flame, after which a buff effect appeared. The maximum stack of Black Flame increased to 15 layers. However, there was also a negative effect. The main attributes of the equipment were reduced by 31%. But it was worth it. The young man then spent the acquired evolution points on upgrading his skill, raising Shadow Massacre to legendary rank, and receiving a new effect. For each hit, he received 1 layer of shield equal to 100% of his health limit. Of course, the new effect had a limitation, and the maximum that could be achieved was 9 layers. But even so, it was an extremely good improvement. After such a successful farm, Qin Feng returned to the ruins of Shanghai, and was quite surprised to see that the girls were still mocking Qin Xiao. They beat her for several hours, leaving scars on her body, and the only thing Qin Xiao wanted was to die. But despite the fact that she herself was to blame for what was happening, Qin Xiao continued to blame her brother, calling him an idiot who did not understand that a woman's no could mean yes. This really infuriated her, but she didn't plan on giving up, and moreover, signed a 3-year contract with the Templar. Qin Xiao wanted to heal herself and continue improving her skills, but at that moment, Qin Feng happened to be passing by, and she cast a healing spell on him. In the end, Qin Xiao was left on the brink of death, beaten by the girls. Meanwhile, Chang Shishi secretly watched as the other players killed the boss in the ruins of Shanghai. She and her servants waited for the moment when they killed the boss in order to take the loot from him. The boys, seeing that their comrade had been killed, immediately rushed to avenge him, but they were unable to do so. Moreover, Chang Shishi also decided not to lag behind her servants and dealt with the rest of the players. Chang Shishi herself, although she was from China, openly hated this country and its men, and wanted the whole world to know that this country and its people were a garbage dump of poor trash. As a result, her leveling consisted of her wandering around the world and looking for players, whom she attacked from behind, taking energy and loot. Meanwhile, the moment came when Chang Shishi seriously decided to create her own guild and call it Alice. At this time, Qin Feng still didn't suspect anything, and, as usual, sold all the unnecessary loot to An Yu. The guys agreed to meet near the statue, but An Yu came there not alone, but with an entire army, explaining that she currently had a large number of lives, so she did not want to take risks. Qin Feng didn't care, because he only came to exchange that very key to the church sanctuary for 2,000 years of life. The young man decided not to delay, and immediately used the life he had received to transfer his skills to the real world. He maxed out all his levels and skills at the same time, except for his equipment, so now his strength in the real world is almost the same as in the game. Meanwhile, the young man received a system notification that his hunger had reached 90%, so Qin Feng decided to take a short rest and return to reality. However, when he woke up, he saw protective walls around his bed and bandits standing nearby, demanding his life energy. But such threats only made Qin Feng even more angry, and using the skill Shadow Blade, he escaped from the trap without permission. Qin Feng's strength was truly monstrous, and no one or nothing could resist it, so he decided to move on to the next point of his plan, killing Chang Shishi and her Alice, and then finding the divine book. Meanwhile, Chang Shishi was busy with her usual activities and led a carefree life. At that moment, she was informed that Qin Feng had been killed by Shadow and wanted to meet her in person in the real Shanghai to hand over his head. Chang Shishi wanted to ask for his geolocation, but since he didn't use a phone to avoid surveillance, it was impossible, which gave the girl the idea to lure Shadow into her guild. Qin Feng didn't resist and agreed to meet in the game, but he found it suspicious that Chang Shishi decided to meet there, and especially next to the Academy of Dark Magic. And his suspicions were not in vain. Chiang Shishi wanted to put on a small show, asking Qiu Haonan for help beforehand. Chiang Shishi had previously been in his guild, the Peaks, but now she intended to found her own, one that would specialize in exterminating the Chinese. Qiu Haonan himself was a notorious mole who supplied information to Alice until the 7th year of the game, and was killed immediately after being exposed. Qin Feng understood that they were just playing this scene to expose his position, so he decided to show himself first. He instantly cut down all the players except Chang Shishi and her 2 servants, and then introduced himself to them, saying that he was that very Shadow. Chang Shishi didn't yet know that right in front of her was not just a player nicknamed Shadow, but that very same Qin Feng, and that's why she fell in love with him at first sight. The Americans who were with Chang Shishi said something in English, but Qin Feng did not understand them and considered their words an insult, for which he killed them. Chang Shishi was surprised by how different the young man was from other men and intended to seduce him. After that, she transferred the payment for Qin Feng's head to him, but the young man said that he could not move the head into the game, so he would give it to her in the real world. This excited Chang Shishi even more, so she offered him a partnership, saying that she was willing to pay him to kill anyone she pointed her finger at. However, she proposed discussing this at the port of Shanghai, promising a reward much more generous than life energy. At the same time, Qiu Haonan was reborn in the city, and was incredibly angry at Chang Shishi and the Shadow. Qiu Haonan didn't expect the girl to go against the government, and moreover, he didn't understand her connection with the Shadow. Lin Qingye, who was also a member of their guild, had a great deal of interest in the Shadow, as she couldn't even imagine what kind of power it possessed, but she really wanted to find out. Late in the evening, Qin Feng went to the port, to Chang Shishi's yacht, where he was supposedly going to give her his head. In the real world, he also put on a cape so that no one would recognize him. Chang Shishi gave him wine to drink, into which she mixed an ingredient, and anyone who drank it would obey her. After that, she pushed him onto the sofa, and wanted not only to find out who was hiding under the hood, but also to make him her obedient servant. But at the same time, Chang Shishi had no idea that in fact it was not a shadow at all, and not even a man. Moreover, not a human being. Then something strange happened. The girl was suddenly engulfed in green fire, which was what Qin Feng wanted to kill her with. However, Qin Feng's plan went awry because Chang Shishi had a crystal protection pendant that saved her from death. Therefore, the young man had no choice but to intervene himself and meet Chang Shishi face to face again. And the creature that Chang Shishi mistook for the Shadow was the very same condemned man that the young man could summon. Realizing the situation she was in, Chang Shishi began to beg Qin Feng for mercy, saying that she would fulfill any request he made. To this, Qin Feng asked her where the 5 foreigners foreigners who were with her were, but Chang Shishi said that she would only tell him if he let her go. Qin Feng was not satisfied with this answer, and he decided to finish off Chang Shishi by taking away her remaining 659 days. After that, he called the police from her phone and reported a mass murder on a yacht. And within a few minutes, the police arrived at the scene. There they discovered the dead body of Chang Shishi, determining that the cause of death was a fracture of the cervical spine. Chu Haonan then touched the girl's body and used the skill Last Words of the Deceased, which indicated the location of the killer for 5 minutes. Realizing that the killer was still on the yacht, Chu Haonan ordered everyone to immediately prepare and find him. However, before he could take a step, a poisonous arrow flew at him. As a result, there were already 2 corpses. And for the murder of Chu Haonan, he began to be considered an enemy of the government. Meanwhile, Qin Feng claimed that this was not the case, and he killed Chu Haonan because he provided benefits to Chang Shishi in exchange for favors, and his phone was full of evidence. In addition to the evidence, other photos were found on Chu Haonan's phone, indicating his close relationship with Chang Shishi. Lin Qingye realized that the murder in the game was just part of Chang Shishi's performance, and the Shadow himself had won her trust, lured her into reality and killed her, and then called the police to eliminate Chu Haonan as well. Lin Qingye didn't fully understand the young man's true intentions, but she was still grateful to him for helping to lure Chang Shishi and Chu Haonan into revealing their true nature. She also apologized to him for trying to shoot him earlier, and to make her apology sincere, she shot herself in the leg. The girl called it a return of the debt, and asked him to continue to remain on the same side with them. Looking at the girl's actions and character, Qin Feng realized that she was a worthy candidate for the role of the future mayor of Shanghai. Meanwhile, Qin Xiao continued to learn skills, and, as she believed, became stronger. But during all this time, she still had not learned how to heal her allies. As a result, she died again and set up her comrades, for which she again received a blow to the head. However, it didn't end there. Then, she not only healed the monster, but awakened a second wind in him, and now he followed her. After Chang Shishi's death, the others' interest in Qin Feng grew even more, as did their desire to kill him. Moreover, after he killed the entire Dongfan family, one of the family's daughters intended to take revenge on him in the most brutal way. For this, she wanted to use his Nantian, who from childhood had a tendency towards cruelty and murder, and thanks to a special upbringing, he became like a monster. Due to his age, Nantian couldn't go into the game, so he decided to come up with a plan to meet the Shadow in the real world and kill him. His plan was to lure him into a factory that would explode as soon as he entered. The Dongfan family itself continued to engage in secret and cruel deeds, killing people who refused to give them years of their lives. Meanwhile, in the ruins of the Magic City, a real massacre was taking place. The boss that Qin Xiao had healed was killing everyone in its path. But when someone is doing badly, someone else is doing well at the same time. And this time, Qin Feng belonged to the second type. While others fought desperately to survive, the young man brought his hideout into the real world, spending 1,315 years of his life to do so. After that, Qin Feng was about to go get the Book of Divine Gifts, but suddenly, Wang Ming informed him about a cruel boss who was currently killing players. It was the Platinum Boss, Headless Assassin Xia Luo, who had a very high stealth level, making it impossible for anyone to see her and resist her. The Great Protector also headed towards the boss, thinking that he could handle it and was confident in his strength. However, all he could do was dodge the boss's attacks by rolling. Suddenly, the boss disappeared, and the Great Defender began to think that everything was over and he would be able to survive. But the joy didn't last long. The moment the player let his guard down, Xia Luo attacked him with a blow from concealment. Qin Feng was a little late to save the Great Protector, but he still used True Shadow Attack to knock down the boss. A few minutes before Qin Feng appeared, something else interesting happened related to Qin Xiao. Many people complained about Qin Xiao and said that they didn't need such a guildmate, but Qin Wuming still decided to keep her, saying that instead of going on combat missions, she would go in search of shelter. And for finding a gold shelter, she was given 3 years of life. For finding a platinum shelter, 10. Plus, Chen Wuming would give her 1 day of life every day so that she would not die completely. Meanwhile, Qin Feng dealt with Xia Luo, killing her with just 1 blow, causing no small amount of surprise among the others. But the strangeness didn't end there. Suddenly, the space around Qin Xiao began to distort, and it was reminiscent of the boss's teleportation effect. To avoid the consequences, Chen Wuming simply kicked Qin Xiao as far as he could, after which Qin Xiao was already levitating in the air, surrounded by Xia Luo's clones. Upon seeing Shadow, Qin Xiao immediately began asking him for help, considering it a great chance to get closer to him. Since there were several opponents, the young man realized that this was the moment to use Shadow Massacre, causing Sha Luo to be instantly defeated. However, in addition to Sha Luo, the young man also hit Qin Xiao, and the girl died from the damage she received. Qin Feng received 1,520 days from the boss, and in addition, he received a lot of life spheres that he didn't know what to do with. But then An Yu appeared and said that she could buy them out. Qin Feng was surprised that Wang Ming and An Yu would appear at such moments, but at the same time, he was happy because he had found a place with good loot. He took Wang Ming and the others with him, saying that An Yu would not go with them, since women were not allowed in that place. The young man told me that there was a tower of divine power behind the northern city gate, and that if you passed the test, you could get excellent items. But the NPCs there hate women. So if there is even one girl in the team, the difficulty increases 10 times. This made An Yu quite angry, and to let off some steam, she went with the other girls to the mountain to kill some monsters there. Meanwhile, Qin Feng sent out an invitation to the team, and the guys went to the tower together. Along the way, the young man also improved the skill Shadow Blade Star, which allows him to throw daggers 20 meters away, removing one random buff, and also received a new weapon, Deadly White Blade, all of which dropped from the boss. After upgrading them, Qin Feng felt stronger, and by upgrading the Shadow Blade Star, he unlocked a new legendary effect. Hitting a weak spot would return 3 seconds of cooldown, which suited him perfectly. At the same time, Wang Ming and the others were 2 kilometers away from Qin Feng and could not keep up with him due to his agility. However, after some time, Qin Feng finally reached the tower. After entering, some NPCs are ready to attack them, and they are also very angry. And the stronger the player, the more expensive the loot will be. Qin Feng said that he would only use 1% of his power, and the rest would have to kill the golden boss. But he was the only one with such optimism. Despite this, after resting a bit, the boys went inside the tower, deciding not to delay. Everything inside looked dim and gloomy, and the unknown NPC hovering in the air added even more horror. He greeted the players and said that they would be forced to make a deal with him if they failed the test. Qin Feng told the guys not to worry and just follow his instructions, but Calm Dog literally bombarded the NPCs with questions, as he had lost 2 friends in the past and was now extremely cautious. However, Qin Feng decided not to delay and informed the NPCs that they were ready to begin. After that, he wished them good luck and summoned the Black Obsidian Golem, a level 20 gold boss. At first, this surprised the guys because before this, they had encountered monsters of level 11 at most. But they were not going to give up. Since Qin Feng couldn't fight, the rest of the guys had to take action. Despite their fear of the monster, they gathered and acted together, striking at the monster simultaneously. However, after several attacks, the boss lost his temper and became enraged, after which Qin Feng decided to join the battle. For others, this mob was a problem and inspired fear. But for Qin Feng, it remained an ordinary monster. Meanwhile, the guys became curious about how Qin Feng knew that the stronger the player, the better the loot in the tower. To which he only replied that the tower, like the ruins of Shanghai, contains many secrets. However, they had no time to talk, because the boss, although he seemed weak, possessed impressive strength. Hiding from his attacks was useless, since the boss was spitting fire clockwise, so Qin Feng asked Wang Ming to cover him. When the flames died down, Qin Feng's team used their most destructive skills and dealt a critical hit to the monster. The plan worked, and thanks to well-coordinated teamwork, the guys were able to defeat the first boss. The difficulty of the boss was that when he lost 70% of his health, he would go into a berserk state, and until the effect wore off, his power was comparable to that of a silver boss. However, they successfully passed the first test, and an NPC named Vickley congratulated them on this. But this was only the beginning. Now the lives of the guys were at stake, and the NPC was offering the coveted Divine Book. However, one of the boys was careless and asked Vickley why he had 6 fingers. This hit Weekly, who then used a devastating attack to instantly kill the Calm Dog. Qin Feng explained to Wang Ming that NPCs and players cannot attack each other unless the player breaks a taboo first. And for Weekly, that taboo is specifically related to fingers. In fact, all these NPCs are the most powerful creatures from other times and worlds who have attained divinity, but are bound by the ancient rules. Meanwhile, the boys could exchange years of life for useful items, in particular, books. Qin Feng decided to exchange 9,000 days of life for 9 copies of the Book of the Jianghai City God to fully cover all his daily needs. Moreover, there are achievements in the Tower of the Deity that give reputation points, and he asked Vickley if it was possible to complete the maximum difficulty trial alone. Vickley was surprised by his courage and said that it wasn't that simple. There were only 5 levels, the 5th was the highest, and although the boss was the same, his attack, health, defense, and skill cooldown were increased by 500%. Moreover, if the young man died during the test, he would lose all his years and they would go to Vickley. But even this did not stop him. Weekly noted that the players were too conceited to be willing to hang themselves at this stage, but he nevertheless began the test. Vickley himself is capable of strengthening his summoned monsters, and 500% isn't the limit. In his past life, when he killed Qin Feng, he boosted the monsters to 2,000%. Qin Feng decided not to delay with the boss, and used his strongest skills from the very beginning. Besides, it was a great chance to test out the new weapon he had obtained after killing Sha Luo. He managed to pierce one of the parts of the boss's head, causing a lot of damage, after which he immediately disappeared. However, he only disappeared for a while, in order to change position and attack from the other side. He then launched another series of attacks, and by hitting weak points, the damage increased several times. The boss's health was gradually depleting, and the young man was especially grateful for the Tablet of the Ancient God, because without it, the limit on the number of Gift of the Black Flame spells would not have allowed him to deal more than 18,000 damage per attack with instant shadow. What he saw surprised even Weekly himself. He couldn't believe that the player had achieved such strength in such a short time. Meanwhile, Qin Feng used the throat slit effect, causing the target to take damage equal to 200% of the previous attack every second. As a result, the young man was able to defeat the boss and complete the 5th level of the Deity's Tower achievement, receiving 5 reputation points for it. He also became the first player in the world to solo the Tower of the Divine on the hardest difficulty, earning him even more reputation points. Vickley was not going to put up with this, was extremely angry with the players and told them to leave so as not to catch his eye again. The guys expected him to use some kind of super move and kill them, but everything worked out. Vickley simply teleported them outside the tower. This was the end of their adventure with Qin Feng, but it was only the beginning of a real game that held an insane number of secrets.